Welcome back to the Bourbon and BS podcast, everyone. This is episode 227. We are live on Facebook every week and YouTube as well. Around, we say 7:30. It's 7:46. That's a little bit more.
7. I blame me. I blame
No.
myself. No.
All right, we'll blame you too.
Blame me. Blame the guest.
But no, we've got, speaking of the guest, we have Dino Tripodis on. It's been a while. We said, 2019 in September.
Yes.
Right? So it's been a minute since we had Dino on the show in the garage.
Yeah, I was here first, and then you guys came on Whiskey Business after that, right?
Yes.
Right. Yeah, both of them memorable nights, as I recall.
You were first on
100%.
episode 60.
60?
Then Jake and Steve were on yours, and then you came back for episode 86.
Wow. You are the
He's the record keeper.
you are the
over here.
record keeper
I am.
Yes.
of everything.
I've got a whole spreadsheet.
Someone needs to be. So, yes, we have Dino on, which is great. We've got a lot of things to cover. It's been a while, like I said, since he's been on the show. And tonight we are drinking Jack Daniel's Bonded. And this is something that Nate brought. You have ties to Jack Daniel's, right?
Like mine.
What's that?
Because I was going to bring a because that's new. This is their newest expression, along with the triple mash. And I did bring some bottles, some
appreciate
remnants,
that.
just to sample. Yeah, need to make room for the newbies.
Yeah.
You know, so I drained some of the old ones in there. But I was going to bring a bottle of triple mash, but I didn't get to the store today. And then look, here's the Bonded, which is what I was debating between the two.
Thanks, Nate, for that. I mean, he's the one that he's been saving that OHLQ pick.
Yes.
Since 2019.
Yeah,
I believe.
that's a sweet one too. I actually had something to do with that.
You
pick.
did, and that's why,
Yeah.
and so when you come back on, Nate definitely called it because the Jack Daniel's, your ties to that particular distillery and love for Jack Daniel's.
I do love Jack Daniel's, and I love all the people down there. Just all the folks at Brown Foreman, they've been very nice. And we had Whiskey Pete Wagner on the podcast recently, who brought these two bottles to us, and we talked in length about those and had a lot of fun. So yeah, it's a good world.
It is a good world.
It's a good world.
I do want to Shannon, what do you need there, buddy?
Man needs his
Too tight
cigar.
to draw?
You should be.
The man needs his cigar
Tools.
punched.
Well,
clipped? Which is it?
It's actually
Poked.
a draw poker.
Okay.
A little surgery there.
How many different ways are there to get a cigar ready? Because this is not my thing. Usually. I mean, I like a good
So
cigar.
you have the three major ones. You have the punch, you have the V cutter, and the straight cutter. What he's doing, he cut it, but there is, and this is where, of course, it's the featured cigar. So we'll see how that goes for everyone else. But there are times where you have a very tight draw, which doesn't seem like you do. Nate has smoke, but
I'm a tight draw.
yeah,
Trust me.
all right.
I'm a tight draw.
But that's what he's using. The draw poker. It opens up the filler tobacco a little bit. Before we get too far into the cigars or whiskey in part one here, I do want to thank all of you guys. Patreon.com/Bourbon and BS podcast. That helps us. We were just talking about beforehand. We have some support. It helps pay the bills. It helps get us online. It gets us on all the audio, all that good stuff. So we want to thank all of you guys for that. Patreon.com/Bourbon and BS podcast. There's a $5, $10, and $25 tier.
You ever think that if you start making more from that you'll put a cooler unit here in the garage for the summer?
Well, at least put in insulation and drywall.
This is better
nice.
than.
No, I like it. I like it. It's better. Yeah.
Dead of winter when we're in here layered up, hats on. We have some of the cigar guys down in Miami that watch this, and then they'll be like, if you're ever wondering what the weather's like in Ohio during the wintertime, just turn on the podcast because you can see what they're wearing.
Some of those guys, when they're in town, they almost don't have the right clothes to be in the garage on the podcast.
I kid because I think it adds to the charm. I really do. What's three guys talking, sweating, smoking, and drinking.
Rather sweating or freezing.
Yeah. So it's good. It's good. I like it. I should have wore shorts, but I like it.
For you guys also, if you want to do a one-time, buy a bottle, or whatever you guys can do, one-time contribution, we appreciate all of that. Those that you have done that is amazing. Just do Venmo at Bourbon and BS. It's kind of like a way if you guys want us to buy a bottle, say, in the notes, you can just say which bottle you want us to look for and send that money, and we will do our best, and then we'll notify you when we are going to be reviewing that bottle. I also want to thank. It's a good idea, right?
That's a great idea. I'm taking some notes. I got to steal some of these notes.
Go ahead.
It's genius.
It's amazing what you think of when you're drinking. Thanks to
I've been paying for
like
all these
t-shirts.
bottles.
Tinder Box, t-shirts. Tinder Box at Easton, Columbus, Ohio. Tonight we're smoking the Joya de Nicaragua Antaño Gran Reserva GT20. We'll get into that and what all that means.
Yeah.
It's a mouthful. Thank you, Tinder Box at Easton. They do have that as well as a lot of the Joya de Nicaragua and Drew Estate lines available. So check them out as well. Altadis USA, we've got the Monte Cristo White Series for the second cigar of the night. So thank you, Altadis USA and the BS Cigar Company. I was smoking a BS Gold on my walk with Tony earlier. And
you're so continental. Such a continental man. Walking with cigars, drinking whiskey.
Talking to the neighbors about the old houses, what they're going for.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
It's a piece of shit house down. Do you know what it went for?
No.
Crazy.
That's rhetorical.
It was. Yeah, it was more than it should.
Hey, very, very charming. Very charming man.
Appreciate that.
You're welcome.
And last but not least, Nate had said that I'm wearing, you can probably not even read the shirt I'm wearing, but this is one of the OGs here. And Nate's reads a lot better because it's newer. But buyjack.com/bourbon and BS if you guys want to get some of the shirts. These are the pour one more, light up another, we'll figure it out together shirts. That's the original podcast shirt. There's a lot of BS cigar company swag. There's the when the world hands you some BS, light it up. 3/4 sleeves, all sorts of fun stuff. Take the notes, man.
I'm taking mental notes.
I'll get you some content.
What the? Merchandise.
You might want to write it.
People sending you whiskey and cigars.
It's amazing. All right. Speaking of which,
been doing this all wrong.
And what he's talking about, for those that don't know, Dino is the host of Whiskey Business with Dino Tripodis. Mm-hmm. Is the actual title correct? Your name
Whiskey
is
Business,
in it for
because there's a couple other variations of Whiskey Business out there, so we had to tack on the with Dino Tripodis, who if it was just with Dino Tripodis, it wouldn't happen. John Whitney, our videographer, and Greg Hansberry, our audio guy as well. Those are the two guys that really make it happen. So shout out to those boys. I think Whitney's watching tonight. Maybe Hansberry's on vacation. Maybe
good dudes.
He's watching. Great dudes.
Yeah. Currently in Ohio, there's voting for different podcast of the year categories, and
that's
you guys
what we're doing wrong.
That's the Columbus Podcast Awards. Yeah, we got nominated again for comedy podcast, which I guess I get. I mean, we have a lot of laughs on our podcast, but I never envisioned us as a comedy podcast. I mean, you guys laugh on Bourbon and BS.
We do,
right?
We do.
But you wouldn't call yourselves a comedy podcast per se.
Hot like interest.
They have there's an entertainment one. There's one for the arts. There's one that's social and culture. I think that's where you guys would fall in.
Yeah, social.
But
we're not cultured.
Well,
but, I'm thrilled. Don't get me wrong. I'm not.
I voted for you.
Ungrateful.
But check out.
We laugh a lot more than anything else.
Whiskey Business with Dino Tripodis.
We find the humor in everything.
Yes,
that's why we're in the comedy category.
That's why we're drinking it. Speaking of which, you can pass that bottle.
This one?
Yeah, if you don't mind. That is the Jack Daniel's Bonded Tennessee Whiskey. On the front, it says aged in select barrels for added depth and character.
Mm-hmm.
Bottled in bond. That's where they're getting the bonded name. It is bottled in bond, 100 proof.
Yep.
Which is one of the basically that's
criteria.
The major one, right? Is 100. Then you have the 4-year period, right? And then they're coming out of barrels from the same 6 months.
Yes.
I think that is
correct.
There.
Yes.
So it has to be same distillate season,
right?
So either January through June or July through December,
right?
Has to be stored in a government bonded warehouse.
Yeah, that's right.
Yep.
Best job in the world.
Yeah, that's right.
Being the guard at that.
That's where the bourbon larceny got its name from. Fitzgerald there. Third, it has to be at least 4 years in that government bonded warehouse. So a lot of companies will do it as 4 years. Some people will do it longer. Like Henry McKenna does it 10 years for their bonded. And then it has to be at 100 proof.
And those are the major criteria here. And Jack Daniel's has never done this before. Is that accurate?
This is their first new expressions in 25 years.
25?
25 years.
For a regular released type of product. They've got a lot of limited ones that came out in the last 25
with higher
years.
proofs and whatnot. But this is as far as something. This isn't a you get it while you can.
This is
type of bottle. This is out there. This is out there.
This is a new regular production.
Forever in a day. Yeah.
Okay.
This and the 3 mash blend.
The triple mash is a little sweeter than this, Have you guys tried the triple mash yet?
No, I've not yet.
You'll enjoy it. They're both delightfully different, and yet have that Jack Daniel's stamp on each one of them. What's interesting about the triple mash, which I know we're not talking about that tonight, is there's actually a single malt whiskey that they created just
for the triple mash.
And when I asked them, like, well, what are you doing with all that single malt? They got kind of quiet and said, well, we don't know exactly yet, which is
they did.
Something's coming. Yeah. But this is good. I said what I said to you earlier, Nate. This is jacked up.
That's right.
It's like Jack went to the gym.
Yeah, that's right.
And got strong.
Well, it's funny. A couple weeks ago when I first got this bottle and did a blind pour for Steve and myself, after I told Steve what it was, he goes, it tasted like Jack Daniels, but different enough that I didn't guess Jack Daniels.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But it had that Jack Daniels character to it.
It's got the sweetness that I feel like Jack normally has. Mm-hmm. And I'll say Jack Daniels, I think like a lot of, I did the Scotch thing I've talked about on the podcast before. I've done that, the Scotch thing when I was in my 20s, and it's like, oh, what do you do when you're getting to be like, you have you have the teen years where it's like, like puberty, adolescence, and then it's like you get 20s and you're kind of like, all right, now I'm becoming a man.
That's right.
That's what I thought. And then I later became a man, like years down the road. But the Scotch and cigars, whiskey and cigars is kind of one of those things.
I like to think you've had that voice your entire life.
Came out of the womb. Speaking of which, Dorothy Crane is watching. So yeah, no, puberty hits harder to some of us. So that's when that voice came up, but down, I guess. What I mean is, though, Jack Daniels was kind of one of those drinks they started doing Jack on the rocks.
Right.
Kind of, I feel like with Jack and some of the original whiskeys that were really big, Jack, Jim Beam, Makers, I feel like kind of got in there in the 90s, 2000s, right. I feel like. And
are you talking like before bourbon went crazy?
Before the blow up. Yeah, this is like when you go in and you're like, I want a whiskey, and it's like they have... You know what I mean? This is like most bars, like I want a whiskey. It's like, well, do you want Scotch or a bourbon? And they have Jack Daniels under the bourbon because there's no they didn't do Tennessee whiskey. Mm-hmm. Looks like we have the lovely connectivity issues, so I don't know where we lost you, but it looks like it's coming back. Thank you, BreezeLine, the brand new internet provider in the Columbus greater vicinity area.
I've seen that advertised. Do you like them?
Clearly, this is a raving review. So
I dumped them after 3 weeks.
What do you, Spectrum now?
Yeah.
Jesus. All right. Well, we're all
prisoners of mediocrity.
Yeah. What I was, and everyone's like, oh, it's because you're in your garage and your Wi-Fi. I'm like, no, it's not.
No, it's not.
But I was saying the Jack Daniels thing was the one I kind of settled on. I had a decently bad experience after drinking too much Maker's Mark on a cruise. Mm-hmm. And that's when I was like, I'm done. Everyone's got that one. I can drink it now in the different iterations of Maker's Mark, but just the original.
Right.
Jack Daniels on the rocks. That's when, Nate, you brought this in. And especially after you said it's a Jack Daniels product, that's what came rushing back to me is some of those sweet characteristics. There is a little oakiness.
If I have an everyday pour, it's Jack. I can.
Do you do the rocks?
I do the rocks, and sometimes now in the summertime, you mentioned like Jack and Cokes or Jack on the rock, Jack and ginger in a tall glass on the front porch.
It's great, yeah.
It's refreshing. A little twist of lime. Nice. So yeah, but this is great. This is great, and they're reasonably priced as well. That's the other thing. For bottled and bond and 100 proof, I think the price point is very fair.
So one thing that we haven't mentioned yet about this bottle, and it kind of threw some people off when this first came out. This bottle is not a 750 ml bottle. Mm-mm. It is not a standard fifth, as we call it in the United States. It is a 700 ml bottle.
I thought that was odd.
So 700 ml is one of 4 new size bottles that United States distilleries are allowed to bottle in.
Since when?
2021. So this is one
inflation coming. Is that
no? So 700 ml is the standard bottle size for spirits in most of the rest of the world.
Right.
So this is something that would be more easily able to ship and put on the shelves in liquor stores across the world.
See, I looked at it as a typical American and said, you're downsizing it. So when I see the price, I think that, that's not too bad.
Not too bad.
But I'm actually getting 50 less mLs.
Well, so this is in Ohio, this is $29.99.
Right.
Which, if you were to adjust it for a 750 ml bottle, you're talking $32.14.
I mean, it's underneath that 30. That's just how people work, man.
It's nice, yeah.
It's not $4. It's $3.99.
$3.99, right? Yeah. If you don't go over a certain amount, that's how it works. But there's everything's shrinking. Everything is smaller now. Candy bars are smaller, and bag of chips is small. There's less in everything. So if it has to happen here, but look, it's a beautiful bottle.
It is. It
is a beautiful
packaging is fantastic.
Yeah, so there's that. And actually, what caught them off guard here in Ohio was the success of the you got to try the triple mash. It was the success of the triple mash. That started flying off the shelves quicker than the bonded.
I plan on it. The triple mash is going to come in at $34.99 in the state of Ohio.
And it's also 700, right?
Yes, it is.
Yes, it is. God bless America.
Do you guys think that that's going to be the new trend? Do you think that other distilleries are going to go after this, or you just think some of the big boys are doing it? And also, follow-up question, do you guys think that it is truly because they can now market it elsewhere in this without having to change it? Or do you think it is the inflation?
Well, with Jack Daniel's being, at last count, one of the world's largest selling spirits in the world, I think that probably would have to come into play. Yeah.
They obviously were doing okay beforehand.
Yeah.
So maybe not, I guess. I don't know.
If you like Jack, you're going to get it. You're not, you're going to say, well, it's a pretty bottle and the whiskey's good. So
what do you guys think of it? We all said that it's like Jack Daniel's jacked up or on steroids.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. I won't keep me from, going back to regular Jack, because this is, once again, it is 100 proof, and I forget that,
it drinks smooth.
Sometimes my math gets fuzzy when I'm drinking whiskey, and you forget what proof is this, especially when it goes down smooth, which it really does, right?
Good news is it's sweating it out tonight.
So. Yeah, that's right. I'm normally not much of a Jack Daniel's drinker. And I mean, usually Jack Daniel's is something I'm drinking if I'm going to a wedding and that's like the only whiskey. Like if I go up to the bar and I'm like, hey, what bourbon do you have? I'm like, we got Jack Daniel's. Like, all right, guess that's what I'm drinking tonight. But no, I still wanted to try this because it was something new.
Yeah.
Something for us to do. And it was bonded. So I was curious to see how that changed the flavor profile. This is the same mash bill as regular Jack Daniel's, 80% corn, 12% malted barley, 8% rye. The one thing that they do advertise that they do differently is they're a little bit more selective as to the barrels they put this in. They look for certain types of barrels that are a little bit darker to try and get a little richer flavor out of this product.
Well, yeah, I mean, with the bottled bond process, I mean, I don't know. Does anyone here, Dino, you're probably the biggest expert on Jack Daniel's, just because do we know how many years when like the typical mash bill is in your Jack Daniel's bottle? Do we have any more information other than the fact that it's Jack Daniel's number 7?
And I lose my expert status because I don't know.
No, I just don't think it's really, this is advertised. So at first glance, Nate, you're saying like, it's like, it's 100 proof. It's a little bit higher proof than the Jack Daniel's is what, 80?
Right. No. Yes.
I would
80,
think,
80, 80.
But I'm just saying, like, it's not just that it's a higher proof. It is the fact that it's different barrels. It is the fact that it's 4 years. It is the fact that, they're doing more of a specific product here as opposed to their, bigger release, which is the regular Jack Daniel's. And shout out to, Bobby Hirschman. He's a little hurt because he's a big Crown Royal. Maybe not hurt, but he says, and we can't talk about Crown Royal or drink it on the show. I get Jack and I get Crown. This group will snobs.
So we're you guys are snobs,
I guess,
because you don't like the Canadian whiskey.
No, Bobby
we like it. We just haven't featured
it. He's out in Philly. And but yeah, he's a big Crown drinker, and he was even here.
Bobby, I like to shoot Crown. I do when I do a shot of Crown Royal is really smooth, but I can't remember the last time I had it in an actual cocktail.
And I did look up, Steve, while you were talking. Regular Jack Daniels is typically aged around 4 years before it's bottled.
So so we're in the same ballpark there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I like the specific part of being bottled and bond on this project. It's kind of a cool thing. And I don't know, for you guys, I'm looking at it as Jack Daniels has some single barrel stuff. Like we got the OHLQ picks that you were a part of, which that's the Ohio Liquor Agency for those that aren't in Ohio. I know they've done, Frank Sinatra. They've done even like Eric Church. They've done a lot of other small projects.
They've got the Master Distiller series.
Yep.
They've got that. Yeah. And they said that they hinted, Whiskey Pete Wagner hinted at stay tuned, that this isn't going to be, it's not going to be another 25 years before some new expressions come out.
So we see that a lot where, our side of it, my side of it's more on the cigar side.
Right.
We have seen one of our big sponsors is Altadis USA. They're known for like the Monte Cristo White Series. Great selling blend, great selling cigar. When the cigar boom and all these new like boutique companies came out, all these, the factories started popping up, and it's like anyone could have a cigar company. And the ones that stuck around, you started seeing everyday cigar smokers, locker members at lounges, people that are just dropping tons of money on cigars in the market, and the market share was getting eaten up by all these smaller that then turn into bigger names like My Father Cigars, like AJ Fernandez. And now you see someone like Monte Cristo, Altadis USA, they're coming out with not only small batch or limited releases, but now they're coming out with regular products that are hitting more of that market. And I think I would venture to guess that that's kind of what Jack Daniels is doing here, is that they're looking at it like, we're going to sell our core products. That's not going away. Yeah. But to all of this market out there, if we can get some of these guys that are getting the bottled and bonds in the $30, $40 range, that they're appreciating this, even if it is, say, their mixer or they're on the rocks, or this is like a, but like a port down the drain whiskey that they don't mind killing a bottle with people that don't really drink whiskey, but it tastes good. I think that Jack Daniels might be looking at this market and be like, how do we get in there? We're not, we're Tennessee whiskey. That's already, it was a thing. Now you can get whiskeys from anywhere. It doesn't have to be a bourbon for the craze to be really all that accurate. I think a lot of bourbon drinkers are drinking all sorts of whiskeys. Yeah. And so I think that this is one that if you have all joking aside, what Bobby Hirschman said is that, it's like you have the bourbon snobs, and it's like now it had to be, we saw this roller coaster. I don't know about you, Dino, if you think the same or along the same lines, but it was the hotter, the better. I need barrel proof. I need all this stuff. I need all this stuff. And then all of a sudden you start seeing everyone be like, no, it's all really good, but, I just, 100 proof, 110, like, that's good. 95, like that actually tastes good for a lower proof. Yeah, people are starting to like, all right, that might be 130 some proof.
Yeah, I always refer to my brother-in-law, who's like, he says he has a hard time drinking anything that's 100 proof or less anymore. And I go, you could just, sometimes you just want to relax. Yeah, and that's why I say Jack. Regular Jack is just a great everyday.
Sometimes you want to drink something for flavor, and just, not have your palate blown up.
And a lot of the high proof bourbons. How many times have you come across a high proof bourbon that you were amazed, like you expected, because the mythology of it all? Yeah, the high proof, it's going to be really hot, and it ends up being smooth. Yeah, super smooth. I mean, that's I've come across some of these. We did a barrel pick, speaking of Brown Foreman, for the Columbus Italian Club a while back. We did an Old Forester pick, single barrel pick, and it's coming in at 139 proof, and super hot, but no, smooth in my opinion. Smooth.
Yeah. Well, and you recently did a single barrel pick for your podcast with Watershed Distillery.
Yeah.
That came in at 119 proof. And I'd actually messaged you about it because I've had quite a few of their single barrel picks, and yours was actually a little bit lower in proof than some of the other ones of theirs that I've bought, but yours did taste a little hotter than some of the other ones. And I messaged you about it, and you're like, I specifically picked that barrel because you need to add just a little bit of water.
Just a little bit. Let it open up a little bit.
And that's exactly what I did. And, I put a few drops of water in that glass, and I was like, holy shit, this is a completely different bottle.
Yep. Water is whiskey's friend, contrary to popular belief. For those of you who, refuse to add any drops of water to your whiskey ever.
The barrel-proof crowd, a lot of times they don't want to do that.
And I understand that. You know what? Then drink it neat, and then just for shits and giggles, drop a little bit of water in there. Open it up.
I think you learn a lot when you do that stuff. I think you
That's
learn
what
a
we've
lot.
done quite a bit recently.
Yeah.
We'll have our first glass or two just straight up, and then that next glass, with the eyedropper or water dropper, add a few drops and see if it changes it. Sometimes it's for the better, sometimes it's for the worse.
Sometimes.
So,
but how do you know unless you try?
That's right.
That's absolutely
That's
right.
So,
So
my friend,
it is hot. It's humid. It's not even hot.
You know
it's
what?
humid.
I'm not even uncomfortable.
I'm not uncomfortable. I need like a towel. I don't have the goods up top to hold the.
Trust me, this.
I'm grabbing me a shop towel over there, Shannon. Welcome back to the garage.
Then I do.
Steve,
I like the garage.
It's good.
I'm digging the whole feel of this.
Steve, I don't know if you noticed. Did you happen to notice what's on the top of the cork on this bottle?
I have not, but I will take a look here as soon as I wipe off the dome. Oh, man.
DSP Tennessee 1.
Yes. So we've talked about DSP numbers with
That's their code.
That's their code. So like when we had Peerless on a couple times, they still have their original DSP KY number, which is 10.
This is DSP.
That's DSP TN1.
So they are the number one.
They're
Tennessee.
the first licensed distillery in Tennessee back in 1866. So.
Why you're leaning that way? There you go.
James Allen Young said triple mash is better. It's different.
Well, we'll have to
find
that and do it on here.
Don't ask me to pick, but I did finish off the triple mash before I finished off. The bottle and bond. So
very nice. I like it. It is. I will say, before we move on to the cigar, it is very much Jack Daniels.
Mm-hmm.
So my comments earlier about the fact that if you're like a bourbon drinker, you like the bottle and bond stuff that's coming out and a lot of these other things, don't expect a bourbon. Don't expect a bottle and bond. Even like this, like we mentioned, Watershed in here in Columbus, they do a bottle and bond.
Sure,
now.
That's a very popular thing right now. Everybody's caught the bottle and bond wave. I mean, everybody's put out a bottle and bond. There is a specialness to it.
I think it's great. I just, like I said, I think going into it, you need to realize this is a Jack Daniels Tennessee whiskey.
Mm-hmm.
And to what Nate brought up earlier, this is the same mash bill as Jack Daniels. So I think I guess that's my disclaimer to the crowd out there is that don't go into this thinking that, they did a bonded product. They're trying to be bourbon. Not the case.
But Jack Daniels is bourbon.
Technically, yes.
Technically, it's bourbon.
I'm sorry.
They do meet all the criteria.
They just prefer to call it.
Well, I mean, it would be a bitch for them to change all the packaging and labeling.
And keep riding the horse that got you there.
Yeah. I guess my point is that don't expect this to be something that Jack Daniels is not.
Right.
I think that they are who they are, and I think this is a new regular product that they are, like you said, beefing up a already well-known and standard whiskey product.
It's like if you physically, if we could use us as a comparison, I would be Jack, your regular Jack, and he would be Jack bonded, jacked up. So there you go.
I appreciate that.
I didn't mean to leave you out, Nate.
Oh,
you're
fine.
You know what? You can be
fine.
the triple mash.
What does that mean?
I don't know.
Does that mean I'm the favorite?
I don't know.
Sure. Yes, you're the favorite. There you go. That's what it means. Triple mash. It's good. It's a good way to spin it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. So let's spend a little bit of time on the Joya de Nicaragua Antaño Gran Reserva.
I would never remember that to go into a cigar store and say, give me what you just said.
Give me a Joya de Nicaragua Antaño Gran Reserva. This is the 5th Vitola or size and shape of the Gran Reserva line. So the Gran Reserva line, from what I understand, is basically it's a tweak on the Antaño line. So Joya de Nicaragua is the company. Antaño is a very full-bodied blend of Nicaraguan tobacco. The Gran Reserva threw some people off. Not as big of a seller from at least my vantage point. This is going to be tweaked down a little bit. So the strength is kind of brought down a little bit, which they were like, okay, they just wanted it to be more approachable, I think. And so when they did this, their 20th anniversary, this blend, I think, came out in 2017, and the 20th anniversary was just recently. And what they did was they picked this blend of all blends, which I think threw a few people off because it's not as well known. But they did this Vitola, which is going to be a Toro 654 box press. That's the shape, box press, 6 inches by 54 ring gauge. And so they did this, and it says GT20 on the box. It was on the foot band as well. Foot ribbon, GT20, 20th anniversary.
So when you say in respects to the shape, because this does, this isn't completely round.
Yeah, this is
box
press.
This is the box press.
Yep.
I don't know if I've ever, I would admit, much like I do not claim to be a whiskey expert, just a whiskey fan. I like to smoke a good cigar, but I always learn because I don't know anything about cigars. I would go in even after hearing you say it 3 times, I would still go into your cigar shop and ask for a Nicaraguan Antonio Banderas cigar and completely
we might be able to get you there.
Screw up the order.
We might be able to get you there if you say it's a Nicaragua Antaño Banderas.
Banderas, he played Zorro.
That's one reason. That's one reason why we tell people to take pictures of the band. You can figure it out from that.
Yeah, but it's really good.
Yeah.
It's really good. And not to keep mentioning my brother-in-law, but my brother-in-law is a huge cigar smoker, and he would know what the cigar is, and probably has them, because he's all about the good bourbon and the good cigars. So I appreciate this. I appreciate being educated.
Yeah, and I verified it. It's actually a 52 ring gauge, and it came out in 2021. So this is a very, very much recent release, much like this bottle.
Yeah.
So does that work for cigars like it does for whiskey? I mean, you said it's a 2021. Are there like cigars that you could pull out of a humidor and say, this is a 2019 and it's been kept in pristine condition? You're going to love it. I mean, is it the cigars lend that way as much like whiskeys do that have been aged? Like this is, this one's been aged for 7 years. This one's been aged for 10. This one has been sitting for 5.
I'm of the opinion that yes, but it's much like what goes into the bottle where you say this is at least 4 years. The wrapper on this and some of the tobacco is over 5 years old, and that kind of brings down the strength a little bit a lot of times. When you age it longer, it will not mellow it out, but it will sometimes not be as punchy, I think. And that depends on where it's coming off of the plant. So I don't want to oversimplify that for the cigar smokers out there that are like, oh, it's not that simple. It's not. But I mean, with this, they put a little more age on it, and that did actually subdue the blend a little bit.
You should be very proud of me, because last time I was in here with you guys, the first time I said I'm not a huge cigar smoker, and I was smoking cigarettes, and you guys allowed me to smoke cigarettes on your bourbon and cigar podcast. But this time I told myself I'm going to start with the cigar, and then maybe when we get to part 2, I'll end up smoking some Luckies before it's all said and done. But I'm really, really enjoying this. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Nate, what do you think of this cigar? Have you smoked it? I can't recall.
I don't know that I've smoked this specific, the GT20.
Yes.
No.
How about the Gran Reserva?
Yes.
Okay.
I've also smoked the regular Joya de Nicaragua Antaño series. Like I've smoked that for years.
We recently on the show did the Dark Corojo.
Yes.
Of this blend.
Yeah. The Gran Reserva of the Antaño series is probably my favorite because the regular Antaño line to me has always seemed to be one of those cigars. They just wanted to make a really strong cigar. So it's full bodied, but it's kind of lacking in flavor. Like it's got some punch to it, but there's not a whole lot of flavor going on with it.
Do cigars have like whiskey and a lot of do cigars have legs? So
you have
like staying power, like finish,
long finish and legs.
Yeah, you will have cigars that will produce like a really thick amount of smoke. Like for example, the Monte Cristo White series with that Ecuadorian Connecticut wrapper has this very thick, what I describe as a very thick, creamy smoke. So just huge smoke clouds that will coat your entire palate, and that's where the flavor is going to be. You have other cigars that aren't going to produce like as much smoke as that one, and that's where the flavor is going to come from. The original Antaño series, I thought, was just a strong cigar for the sake of being strong. There wasn't a great deal of flavor in it. What I like about this one is it has a really good flavor, and it's a bolder flavor compared to the regular Antaño series. Like there's more flavor that hits the palate on this. Like even before I lit it up, I'd made the comment to Dino that on the cold draw, so before I lit it and I had already cut it, but it was like drawn through the cigar, like I was getting this leather and nuttiness to the tobacco, just the taste of the tobacco itself. And so I was like, all right, I'm looking forward to this because it's already got good flavor. Now let's put some fire to it and see what happens.
So before you even
lit the cigar,
the cigar, you were picking up leather and nuttiness on it. Let me ask you this: being the novice cigar smoker, there's a lot of events that have food pairings with whiskey. Does the same thought go into cigar pairings with certain whiskeys? I mean, I see that. You guys, they have whiskey and cigar nights. Does time and consideration go into like this particular cigar? Like we're drinking Jack Daniels tonight, but with all the whiskey that you guys have consumed and you're smoking this cigar tonight, can you connect it to a whiskey that it would complement even more?
Potentially. I mean, you'd have to sit there and really spend some time to think about,
like off the top of your head, like, oh, I wish I had a blank to go along with this tonight as opposed to Jack.
Woodford malt.
Okay. All right.
Because that Woodford malt's got that, even though it's only a 51% malt in the recipe, it's got that nuttiness that really stands out. And I think that would go well with the tobacco in the cigar.
Interesting.
But yes, people do pair cigars and whiskey, just like you do like whiskey and food. Usually on Sundays, the gentleman I work with at the Tinder Box, he's not much of a drinker. Like he likes Mike Hard lemonades and stuff like that. So when someone comes in and asks about pairing,
woo girl.
When someone comes in and is asking him like, yeah, I'm going to be drinking this bourbon. Like, what do you think is going to go well with it? He usually defers to me.
Yeah.
And there was one customer recently where he was going to be drinking 4 different whiskeys. And I just sat there and picked a cigar for each one of those. And part of the reason why I picked certain cigars with certain whiskeys was because of what I knew the flavor of that whiskey being, and then the tobaccos being used in different cigars.
And if we had cheese, what would your cheese be? What would the cheese? What cheese would go? A brie? A brie? Okay. All right. Excellent.
Yeah, Gouda. All right.
Gouda.
You have that draw poker? I think we're gonna.
Every time you say draw poker, I'm looking for a deck of cards.
All right, you have to pull out the shank there.
yeah. The cigar, I think quite a few of us have had a little. It's like a little tight, just a little tight in the head.
Literally, just you try not to go out the side.
Shannon's in the studio audience. He had to cut a little bit more, but yeah, like when you squeeze it,
it'll break it up.
Like down here by the band, it feels really, really soft. But up here at the head of it, I mean, it's
4 cigars.
It's solid.
All right.
And you see other ones that are going to be they've got like
spiral.
A spiral to it. We have one in the shop that I really like that it has you lay the cigar in like this base. It has a top
like a channel,
and then it has 5 or 6 holes, but it goes the whole length of the cigar because you don't know where the filler could be kind of plugged up. This is good.
What do you mean you don't know where the filler could be plugged up?
So you don't know if it's
see
tight.
How long that is?
Yeah.
So if the filler's plugged down here,
right,
you won't get to it. The filler, and I don't know what Joya de Nicaragua is doing. Was this long? Did you sharpen this? How does this work? I feel like there's so much more room.
No, that's how it is. That's how it's always been.
So
like to have one of these in prison.
Yes. Probably would set out the metal detector.
Well, if you ever go, I'll try and hook you up.
He's gonna bake you a cake. No, so yeah, the filler can sometimes different styles or techniques of bunching the filler. It really doesn't matter. I mean, like you can have what is like the accordion style, which would basically, if this was the leaf of tobacco, right? They more or less better than I'm going to do it with the towel, but they kind of just do that, right? Take that, get the next one, do the same thing, put it up against there. There's the entubado roll, which they literally take each of the filler leaves and do really tight rolls.
Right.
They do that. And then they'll take another leaf, do the same thing. And then that's the filler. They put all those together. That's more of your traditional style that I was taught, like a Cuban style, if you will. And that's usually going to give you a better draw. But even that, watch, if the humidification hits that,
okay,
and all of a sudden you get a pinch.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, if there's expansion with humidity, just like with everything, especially with tobacco. So getting delivered on the truck sits in a certain part of your humidor that sometimes has a little bit more humidity, just settles, whatever the expansion you can have. It doesn't matter if it's a $2 cigar or a $50 cigar, it can still happen. It's the roller technique, hopefully, that sometimes will prevent that, the way that they're trained, but it will happen.
Could you do that? Could you roll your own? I mean,
I have never been trained. I've done wrappers.
Yeah.
I mean,
I find that to be a fascinating skill set. When I go to visit down in Florida, I go with my brother, again, my brother-in-law. We go to his favorite cigar shop, and his friend Ulysses has a cigar shop down there, and he has a guy that they roll them there as well. And I find it to be just an amazing talent and skill set.
It is
craft.
And so with that being said, you will have different techniques. You'll have, most of the time it's like a pair. Yeah. So you have someone that's bunching and putting the binder on, and you have a one that is more specialty on the wrapper leaf. Mm-hmm. And so you'll see that the teams, and that's usually for production and also for specialty. So more consistency there. You will see, like Miami, especially a lot of those smaller factories, they're one person operations. So like the people you see almost in the shops also, where you see them bunching, that's kind of that more. They bunch it, then they put the binder on. A lot of times they'll then put it in a mold, or they'll set it down over here to kind of get that shape, and then they'll put the wrapper leaf on as a secondary thing.
And sometimes with some of the bigger cigar manufacturers, like you'll have, depend on the size of their operation, you'll have however many tables. They will usually be familiar, and they'll do like one particular blend and size of a cigar. So that way they're constantly doing, repetitively doing the same shape. They know what they're trying to do. They're doing that same cigar like day in, day out, and someone else is doing a different size. Another table's doing another size. So that way, they become more specialized in that particular size of that blend that they're making.
Isn't it amazing? Certain things you want to know how they're made, and certain things you don't want to know how they're made. Like if this was a conversation about hot dogs and we were going into detail, let's say stop. Don't tell me about bologna, but how you make the cigar, how this whiskey was created.
We had.
Do you want to know how they make a Big Mac?
We had Tony Tanner on, who is the owner in town. If you're familiar, Grandview is his original location, but the butcher and grocer.
Yeah.
So we had him on the show. You were joking about like what cheeses. He brought this again.
I wasn't joking. I'm serious. I love cheese.
This charcuterie board, but it was beefed up. It was jacked up, like we're talking about.
Yeah.
It was nuts. It was just so good. But same thing. He wants you to know how everything's made.
He does.
Oh yeah, and it's cool to see.
Yeah, but he wants
you to know.
Yeah, he wants you to know how everything's made, because he's using really good stuff.
He's doing it the original way. Yeah. But yeah, the last thing I'll say about that, as far as techniques, there are levels, right? So like the different, again, Vitolas, the shapes and sizes, as you get better at your job, just as one would expect, right? There's a level 1, level 2. Like they're at the lower level, rollers are rolling some of your basic shapes and sizes. When you get to level 9 or like a master roller, wherever they call them, depending on what country you're in, much like a master distiller, you have distillers that are working in there that they can do certain products, but the master distiller is the one he's picking out the barrel picks. He's picking out this. Yeah. He's coming up with the new products. The master rollers are doing the figurados, the Salomones, the unique sizes, doing the $30 retail cigars. Because if you have a $30 retail cigar and you're not one of the top 5% of rollers and you have consistency issues, the brand name is fucked real quick.
When I worked for LFD, there was a particular cigar that they had come out with that year that was a limited release. There was one person that did the filler binder, and then one person that did the wrapper. So you had 2 people in the entire company making that cigar, and that was it. So that's one of the reasons why sometimes you'll have a limited production, either limited in tobacco or just limited as to how many people are making that cigar.
La Polina was a company that did the Goldie, and that was one roller, and she's passed away since. But I mean, that was one roller doing this limited run, and she was the master roller in that factory in Miami.
Well, I like smoking cigars. I don't smoke them on a regular basis, and I'm probably happy that I don't, because I really have enough. I already have enough vices as it is on a daily basis. I mean, I smoke cigarettes every day. I drink a little bit of whiskey every day. You know, like money spent. Yeah, I don't need that. If I subtract something, maybe I can, slip cigars in. But I don't see me dropping anything anytime soon. So cigars will have to be that enjoyable indulgence. And I can't think of a better way to indulge in them and learn than sitting with you guys. So thank you.
What do you think of this cigar?
I like it. You said it's not really harsh. I don't think it's as harsh at all.
No.
I have to fight from inhaling because I smoke cigarettes.
And you smoke full-bodied cigarettes.
Yes, I do. So, but I have to resist doing that on a regular basis. But once I realize I'm smoking a cigar again, I do taste flavor. I can pick up on flavor, and I've had some cigars that I smoked enough cigars to know when I'm smoking a shitty one.
There you go.
Okay.
Yeah, that's fair.
Is that fair?
Yeah.
And this is not a shitty one. This is really good. Am I wrong to say that could there be a sweetness? A sweetness to this cigar.
No, you're not wrong. I agree with you. I get that. It's almost like a cedar sweetness. If you like, I know people don't think of cedar wood as sweet, but it's like this. I get different with mine. It's like cedar and oak. The woods have different depths to it. I feel like cedar has a very unique smell, and it's like and this is gonna like where you guys are probably gonna be like it's like a higher pitch. It's lighter. It's better, more aromatic than like pine in my opinion. But oak is like a deeper scent. It's deeper.
Right.
So if you're thinking about that, like when I retrohale through the nose, I'm getting that sweetness that you're talking about, but I'm getting cedar with it.
I'm just thrilled that my palate can pick up on sweet and strong.
And that's one of the reasons why you don't inhale a cigar, because it's all about the flavor and there's no taste buds in your lungs.
Just like this Jack Bonded, this guy, I can still pick up on the caramel and the oak and this particular whiskey. And
speaking of, can you pass me that bottle?
I can. Do I have to?
Okay, fine. I'll crack it.
I can't.
Send it back as we get into the round out of part 1 here.
Part 1. Yeah, that's right. You guys go whiskey and cigars first, and then you dig into
life.
Then you dig into life, and that's when probably another bottle gets opened up.
A lot of the times, yes.
Not
always.
No.
But in all fairness,
it's a 700 ml bottle.
It's so small. It's like small.
And we had already, you and I personally had already had a pour out of this bottle.
With this in my hands. It's like
we're not going to run
out
of whiskey. That's never an issue.
This is like what you see in the hotel bar, It's like this little baby bottle.
Run out. There's that, and I brought the remnants over there as well.
I might have a couple bottles.
How's the Taylor, by the way?
Oh, it's amazing.
Yeah. I think he took the single barrel. The rest of the
single barrel bottled in bond.
Bottled in bond. The rest of my single barrel bottled in bond. Colonel Taylor, you're welcome. I salute you back. I feel I should, since it's the Colonel.
Jonathan Herring's out there. He says, he's kind of making fun. I think a little bit.
Yeah, I do too.
Maybe a little under fermented apricot.
You can read that.
Yeah.
Good eyes.
Sometimes.
Wow.
Sometimes.
That's good.
Yeah. I need to get a bigger screen.
I need to get bigger eyes.
Yeah. There was a while back, about 2 months ago, at some point, I mixed up my contacts, and I have different prescriptions. 225 and 175.
Ew.
And it was
freak.
I actually noticed it first, and I thought, I was like, man, I need to go to the eye doctor. I was in the outfield at softball. I'm like, I can't even read the guy's number on the back of his jersey. That's bad. And then I was in here, I'm looking at it, I'm like, I can't fucking read anything. So the next morning I looked and I was like, yeah, that's the wrong.
I could never do contacts. I can't. I have a hard time even putting eye drops in my eyes. I can't.
Do you wear glasses?
Yeah, I wear glasses, and I forgot them. And my favorite glasses got busted last winter when I slipped on black ice. And
bar fight.
And no bar fights. Hey, I don't think there's been a bar fight in a while.
That's good.
Yeah, I'm happy.
These are good things.
Yeah, you're right. At 60 something, you should start taking
at
things
over
off
50.
your list. Yeah.
All right. This is
bar fights.
Bar fights are the worst. I don't even understand.
They're the worst and they're the best.
I've been in one, but it's always breaking one up. I've never been in a bar fight.
I've broken them up and I've been in them.
That's
both. Fair. And when I say the best, I mean that romantically.
As long as everyone wakes up the next morning and everyone's
Right.
okay, they just have bumps and bruises. No one. They didn't escalate to the point.
I had a bar fight in college when I was working in Clarksburg, West Virginia. It was as close to a Burt Reynolds, Smokey and the Bandit, Stroker Ace fight you could get in a bar, where somebody said the wrong thing to the wrong person, and it should have been just a fight between those two people. But then everybody in the bar started fighting.
At some point, someone puts on a certain song. On
yeah,
the box,
and there's
like everyone's starting to get in a fight, and everyone's like, "Oh fuck yeah!" Boom, boom.
And there's chairs being broken and people being smashed.
Where was this?
This is in Clarksburg, West Virginia.
Sounds right.
And then afterwards, there we all were in the ER. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Everybody just kind of bullshitting and talking about
Fight's over.
Yeah, fight's over. You got a good shot. You got to be good. I'm probably going to need 2 or 3 stitches.
Nice.
There was
nice.
that type of conversation. It was crazy. Crazy.
James Young's asking about that 1792. I saw you responded, Nate. Is that something? Have we done it on the podcast or?
No, we've only done the regular small batch 1792.
And which is that?
He gave us the bottled and bond.
Is there enough to do it on a part one?
Got about a little less than half a bottle.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's say, don't bring it on Saturday. Let's get it on the show.
You got it.
Thank you, James, for doing that.
Is that the old Forster?
No,
it's a 1792 bottled and bond.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, James Young, he's a regular listener, supporter of the podcast, and he brought it into the shop. And
I'm thinking of all the dates, the 1820, and I kept thinking it was one of the old Forster bottles.
Yeah. The Whiskey Row series.
Yeah.
As we round out part one, we rate the cigar, the whiskey, and the pairing. Did we do this? I don't think we did this the last time you were on. This is something that I think we added.
Yeah, you started doing this, Steve, when COVID first hit. So we first started doing the ratings in March of 2020.
Okay. So
and Dino was on 6 months earlier.
This is a new part for you, Dino, is that 10's the best. There's 3 ratings. One is the whiskey. So that's the Jack Daniel's Bonded. This is the bottle we're featuring tonight. There's an out of 10 rating being the best for the Joya de Nicaragua Antaño Gran Reserva GT20. And you have to say it before you rate it.
No, okay, then I can't rate
it. And then there's a 3rd rating out of 10. It's going to be the pairing. And it's however you want to justify the pairing. Is it something that brings out? Is it something that doesn't, I guess, have a conflict? Do they stand up to each other? However you want to do it.
Okay.
Would you like to go first? I feel like you.
I don't know. No, I can go first, second, third. I don't care.
Have at it.
I'm gonna start with the whiskey, and I know you're gonna think, oh, he loves Jack Daniels. He's gonna say a 10. No, because you know what? Here's my deal with anything that's a 10. A 10 is the best you can do, top of the line. I always like to think, and maybe if anybody from Jack Daniels or Brown Forman is listening to this, maybe you feel the same way. You know what? You always want to strive for the 10, but never quite get there, because if you do, then where do you go? Right? So I will give this a solid Jack Daniels Bonded barrel proof, bottled and bond. I will give this a strong 8.5. 8.5 for the Jack Daniels Bonded. The cigars, I don't feel I'm qualified to rate the cigar, but I like it. So if it was under a 5, I wouldn't smoke it. If it was a 6, I would probably pretend to smoke it. If I was a 7, I would continue to smoke it. And if it was an 8, that means I'm really enjoying it. So I would probably give them both an 8 and give the cigar and the bottle a total of 9 together.
As a pairing.
Yeah, as a pairing.
All right.
All right. Is that fair?
That is fair and honest.
It's your rating and be whatever you want it to be.
All right.
Nate, how about yourself?
So on the Jack Daniel's Bonded, I'm an 8. I do like this bottle. It really surprised me because, like I said early on, I'm not the biggest Jack Daniel's fan. It's not something I keep on my shelf at the house or something that I pick up and get often. There's so many things to try, and I have only so much. Like you, I have only so much space
and so much time.
Exactly.
I have so much money.
And only one liver. I have to be selective.
Yeah, but with the advances in science, I think that will be fine.
God, let's hope.
Yeah, I mean, come on.
But no,
Everything will be okay, everyone.
I do like this. It has this really nice, thick caramel viscosity to it. Some good sweetness without being corn heavy. Even though it's an 80% corn, like it doesn't come across that real corny type flavor to it. It's got a nice sweetness to it, and like you can definitely tell. They do that charcoal filtering for this because I think more than the regular Jack, this has that real heavy char flavor on the back end. But it's not off-putting. It's that's just for me part of the finish is that oak char. So I give that an 8. The cigar I'm an 8 as well. I really do enjoy.
We're almost on the same page.
Yes, we.
Wow, about that.
Look at that.
I do.
What the fuck I'm talking about?
I do like this cigar. I do like this cigar because in the realm of Joya de Nicaragua cigars, what I like about this, as you alluded to, Steve, is they intentionally made this cigar not as strong as the Antaño series,
right?
And because of that, it also adds, the tobaccos they're using also a little bit more flavor, I feel like, than the Antaño series. So it's more of a balanced mix between the strength and the flavor of the cigar. So even though this one's not as strong as the Antaño, I think it's got a lot more flavor than the regular Antaño series.
Would Antonio Banderas like this cigar?
Probably. I don't know what he likes to smoke. He probably likes Cubans.
That's so stereotypical.
He would
because he's a celebrity. He's rich. He can afford that shit.
Yeah. He does know Arnold too. So
yeah. As far as the pairing, I'm going to be a little bit different than Dino.
Ah, damn it. All right. Go ahead.
8 and...
My pairing is going to be a 7.5.
Okay.
Going from cigar to the Jack Daniel's Bonded, I do get a little bit more sweetness out of the whiskey.
Okay.
But if as soon as I take a drink of the whiskey, I then go to the cigar, there's a lot more spice on this cigar that hits my palate, but it's a little off-putting because it's a little too much spice.
I got
Interesting.
You. Okay.
And
so for me,
the
to round
master?
it out, not the master, just my garage. The Jack Daniel's Bonded, I like what they did here. I don't like the fact that it's a 700 milliliter. That's just my personal opinion. Based on our conversation with, I feel like if Patrick Adams was on tonight's show, so he's out in California now, but it was a great guest. He's been in publishing for a long time, and we were promoting his new magazine called ATF, Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. It's more of a lifestyle magazine, but aimed specifically for first responders.
Sure.
And so it's open to anyone, but I mean, it's very much, he's all about the blue collar, red-blooded American, even within today's climate, right? So looking at that, I'm like, all right, I get it, but we call them fifths for a reason.
We do.
So I feel if I were to buy this, not knowing this conversation we had, and then at some point I'm like, man,
hey,
I would absolutely blame the fact that the bottle went quickly because I'm missing 50 milliliters.
You're missing
be like,
that.
does it say 700 or am I drunk?
What we're trying to say, ladies and gentlemen, is that size matters.
Size can matter, but getting back to how you use it is important also. I would give this bottle an 8.
Or even if you use it, anymore.
No, I give this bottle an 8. I think this is a cool thing. I will say, I know, even though it is technically a bourbon as well, for those that are looking at the bottle and bond stuff, that is I think typically, to my viewpoint, it's Kentucky stuff.
Yeah.
So that's when I said that, and I was quickly corrected. But I would say don't expect this to be a Kentucky bourbon that's bottled and bond. This is not going to be a bottled and bond that I'm used to. This is a bottled and bond Jack Daniels, which that's why I'm giving it an 8. I think this is good. This is something, Jack Daniels, I prefer it on the rocks, prefer it mixed, as you were saying, Dino, earlier on the show. Neat.
I would love this on the rocks.
Yes, but I'm saying this I can drink neat. Jack Daniels, just regular. I don't really like it as much on the rocks. Like even a shot, it's like it's too sweet. It's a little bit abrasive, even though it's lower proof. It's just it's very flavorful, but on its own, neat, not as well as something like this. This is deeper. Gotcha. This is richer. This is a little.
And you'll notice, and we don't have another bottle of Jack compared to it. It's actually a little darker.
It is, yeah.
It actually is in color. It's a little darker than your regular Jack.
So
I think that alludes to the different barrels that they were using for that. That's what they wanted.
So I'll say, yes, 8 on that. The cigar, I'm kind of with you, Nate, on this when you get into the fact that they did a slightly milder. It's not mild. It's not a mild cigar, but to your point, the Joya de Nicaragua, they quickly made a name for themselves. I feel like in this industry that it is a very punchy. This is a very strong Nicaraguan. This is what we're all about with Nicaraguan tobacco. And then they come out with this. If I were to do this for them differently back in 2017, not the GT20, the Gran Reserva, I wouldn't have used the Antaño name. I would have branched off because since then, for those that are fans of Joya de Nicaragua or aren't a fan of them because they're so full, they've come out with other blends that are milder. They've come out with other blends that are more medium. So they've done other products. The fact that they use this as kind of whether they intended it or not, to me, it's kind of a launch pad to be like, hey, we're not always going to be super strong. That's not what we're only known for. I mean, we just had a beautiful sampler set at the shop that we broke apart. But it was this beautiful sampler set. I think there's 20, 25 cigars
25.
in there. And the Antaño, just the regular Antaño, they have on the bottom of the different Vitolas, and they have like the blend. And it was like, this one's 4 out of 5. This one's 5 out of 5. The Antaño, 6 out of 5.
Yeah.
Like they're behind it because that's what's sold for them.
Yeah.
That's their bread and butter. In there, but I think it said a 4 out of 5, if I'm not mistaken. And I'm like, that's not a bad thing. This is a very flavorful cigar.
Yeah.
But it's very misleading if you're a Joya de Nicaragua fan.
How would you classify the strength of this one?
Medium plus?
Yeah, I agree.
It's a medium plus, and I think it's a great cigar. I'd give the cigar 8.5. I'm giving it 8.5 because I had plug issues. Shannon had plugged issues. Dino, you seem to be.
I had a plug issue.
Did you?
Yeah.
It's just a little bit, and maybe it's this
with
size.
The
cigar.
I think it's a little tight, but I get that sweetness that we talked about.
And it's just there in like that top inch and a half.
Just want a good draw on the cigar. That's where I give it. It's not a bad draw. It's not unsmokable, but this is something that if the construction, maybe it's the fact that it's super humid out here. I don't know what it is, but it's a little tight of a draw that I'm not getting an effortless, enjoyable smoking experience. The pairing, I give it an 8.5. I think there's sweetness in both. I think they're both, in a sense, in that kind of, if you were going to classify a medium-bodied bottle and also the cigar, I think they're not really overpowering each other. I think it brings out a little bit of sweetness in both. I've just enjoyed the pairing. And back on the cigar, I think I would probably enjoy the pairing a little bit more if I had a better draw on the cigar.
All right.
Because I'm telling you, the whiskey goes down smooth. The cigar not as smooth because I'm
You're working too hard.
Work on it.
You don't want to work as hard as you do.
Go ahead, grab the mic, and then we'll round out part 1 here. James Young.
James wants to comment on the
Shannon out here, but no, James Young, who the 1790 small bottle, tight cigar, sensing a theme here.
All right, go ahead, Shannon.
So I'm sipping on the Kernel over here, the single barrel, and it's brought out a lot of sweetness.
Yeah,
in the Kernel, like a lot.
It's going from the cigar to the E.H. Taylor.
Yeah. Cigar.
That's what it did for me with the Jack Daniels.
Okay,
like
yeah.
it made that Jack Daniels bond taste a little bit sweeter than the pre-podcast pour.
Like this, the bad draw hasn't scared me off from the cigar at all. I'd love to get another one and really see if I can get a good draw out of it. But I've enjoyed it. It's been a little bit of work getting to it, but I've enjoyed the cigar.
I bet you now where you're at, where the draw poker was, it opened up. I'm about to get to where that draw poker got
it's really opened up, and I'm starting to get some good draws out of it. But it was still an enjoyable cigar for sure.
Yeah.
So you boys don't like the work when you're smoking a cigar. You don't like that.
Well, sometimes when you get a cigar, that's
a negative thing.
When you get a cigar that's a little too tight, and you really got to pull on it with the cheeks and jaw. Like you just get tired of smoking that cigar for a while.
Don't get too specific. On
yeah.
that, please.
Otherwise, James going to chime in again.
Oh, I'm sure he will.
Good thing it's not a thick Vitola.
I don't even know what that means, but it sounds funny.
All right. Everyone, calm down. All right. Before we get into part 2, better not be children listening. I do want to thank you guys. Dino, thank you very much for being a part of the show again. Guys, check out Whiskey Business with Dino Tripodis.
WhiskeyBusinessPod.com and our YouTube channel, Whiskey Business with Dino Tripodis. Check them out. And we are nominated for the Columbus Podcast Awards for Best Comedy Podcast. And that automatically puts us in the running for Podcast of the Year once again. So,
Nate, I want you to share that if you would on that.
ColumbusPodcastAwards.com, I believe, is the site, ColumbusPodcastAwards.com, where you can do all the voting and check them out. There's a lot of great people in there, and you guys should be in there. We
don't know how. That's what I'm saying. This year we're not in it. So Nate, if you could share it, not at the you don't have to do it right now, but I'm saying share it on the community page, Bourbon and BS community page, which is now over 1,600 members, which we appreciate. But share it on there, and then let's find out between now and next year how someone can be nominated or some show, maybe, I don't know, like Bourbon and BS podcast.
Yeah, you guys should definitely be in there. Just don't go to the comedy banner.
No, we're not funny. So that's the good news for you. We're not really funny, which is nice. It's cool.
You're amusing. You're amusing. Sometimes amusing is better than funny.
Yeah. Patreon.com/Bourbon and BS podcast. Thank you guys very much as we round out part 1. All the support is very much appreciated and not lost on us. And it definitely helps us out with doing this show over and over again every week. That was something Dino asked because he does a podcast as well, as we just mentioned. He's like, you still enjoying this? And it's like, yeah, most weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Every once in a while, even this becomes like man, I wish I had a Wednesday night free.
Right.
But we do it, and we get something out of it, too.
Consistency is the name of the game.
Absolutely.
Do I have to change my shirt for part 2? Because I didn't bring a change of clothes.
No, you do not.
No, just stay right here.
Shirts and skins tonight.
Venmo. Nobody wants to see that.
All the ladies are going, Steve Skins.
Venmo at Bourbon and BS. If you guys want to buy us a bottle, thank you very much. Tinder Box at Easton in Columbus, Ohio. They do carry the Joya de Nicaragua, Antaño, Gran Reserva. I see it. I even messed it up. No, Reserva. GT20, along with other products from Drew Estate and Joya de Nicaragua. Check them out. If you're not in the local area and you don't have a local brick and mortar cigar shop, please contact Tinder Box at Easton in Columbus, Ohio, and they'll get them any cigars you need out to you. Altadis USA, thank you very much. We're about to light up in part 2, the Monte Cristo White Series. So check them out. Thank you, Josh Bentley, and everyone at Altadis USA for the continued support. Behind us is the banner, Monte Cristo, Romeo y Julieta, H. Upman, Aging Room, along with many, many other brands that they represent and get out to you. And BS Cigar Company, like I said, I was smoking the BS Gold. The silver is also available. The gold is by Plasencia, and the silver is by Espinosa Cigars. So check them out. And if you want a shirt, support the podcast that way and rock it and post it on the community page. Pour one more, light up another. We'll figure this out together. Is the podcast shirt. There's other ones on there, but it's buyjack.com/bourbon and BS. And with that, we're going to take a quick intermission. If you're listening on the podcast, the audio, just click over to part 2. And if you're listening live and you haven't checked out what we said about the whiskey and the cigars, scroll back. And if you're listening live, we're going to talk about longevity. Not
talk about
in tonight's show, but we're going to talk about longevity
in general,
but there's going to be something a little bit specific that you actually brought up.
Bring to the table because where you can get it and where you might find it, I know.
Yeah. So we're going to find out about that. Guys, thank you very much. Happy Whiskey Wednesday. You have an empty glass. We can't cheers it. Hang on, everyone. Waiting on Dino here.
It's just an excuse for him to pour more.
God, I love that sound.
A little bit.
A little bit for you?
Yeah, sure.
All right.
Well, and then here.
A little bit for you? Are you good?
I'm good.
All right.
He looks.
All right. Take 2.
All right. Cheers. Happy Whiskey Wednesday, everyone. And let's round out part 1. We will see you in part 2. As we are in the intermission here.
But we're still on Facebook Live.
Well, we're live. Yeah, no, this is the this is bonus feature here.
This is the
Kristen says, "Hey there, Nate. You said hi."
I did.
I meant about the skins comment. LOL.
Nobody wants us. Maybe
any of us really. No, no one wants.
What you?
What exactly? Of the 3 of us,
who
of the 3 of us on the table, who do our viewers want to see shirtless?
None of us.
That guy.
We're all sweaty messes here.
You're very kind.
James Young, we do carry Alec Bradley, not the Black Market Vandal or the Con.
What's that mean?
Those are one-offs, if you will, of an Alec Bradley blend. The Black Market, we carry the Esteli Black Diamond, but not the Vandal. The Con.
So they're asking cigar questions.
Yep.
I got you.
And I did go ahead and post the link for the nominations for Columbus Podcast Awards. Nice. I did go ahead and post that on the community page. So you can click on that. You can select and vote for your favorite podcast for each category.
Well, Jonathan Heron says #Team Nate. We're back on that. All right.
What does that mean?
He wants to see his shirt off, I guess.
Oh, wait, no.
I don't know. That's why I'm reading it.
No.
That's your interpretation?
He actually had a shirt made that on the shirt actually says #Team Nate.
I don't even remember what we were talking about that going into that. He was remote. Is that the one with Justin Andrews too, from Diesel and now with General?
He may have come up with the idea then, but then he told us. Yeah.
He wore it on the show.
Yeah.
No, there'll be no skins on it. Nobody wants to see me. I don't even want to see me naked.
Better keep drinking.
That's why there's no mirrors in your house.
All right. Austin, no, we're not voting. I don't know what that means, but Jonathan says that is what I meant.
Oh gosh.
God, all right.
Let's go into part 2. This is good. This is good stuff, guys. Good stuff. Not the most recent things we talked about, but before and going forward.
I love that you have to qualify.
At least we're getting some participation from the community.
Yeah, it's good to hear from everyone. It's not what you're saying. Is it Ikaria?
It's pronounced
Ikaria.
Ikaria.
Okay.
There's different. There's the Greek pronunciation. There's the American pronunciation.
I'll let you actually.
But Ikaria is good, and I would say Ikaria only because that's what I've said forever.
Okay.
But Ikaria is fine too. It is. It really is.
I'm sorry. Jonathan's aggressive tonight. Take your shirt off, Nate.
He seems very insistent.
Might be a first on the podcast tonight, everyone. Let's hope not. All right, ready?
All right. Yes,
Let's
sir.
have a moment of silence so that I can actually pick this apart on the audio. Welcome back to the Bourbon and BS podcast, everyone. This is episode 227, part 2, Beyond the BS. We are lucky enough to have Dino Tripodis in the garage again. It's been
too long.
It was back in 2019 that he was on the show before. Dino, if you guys are obviously in the podcast world and like whiskey and comedy, apparently
we're very funny on Whiskey Business.
Whiskey Business with Dino Tripodis.
Yeah.
So check them out on all the platforms, right? So you guys do some, obviously social media, but you do some live stuff, but mostly it is a traditional podcast.
Yeah, traditional podcast. We do the audio, we do the video, and we record them and then release them a week later. Occasionally, more so during the pandemic, we did a lot more remote stuff and Facebook Live stuff. Yeah. I love the fact that you guys do the Facebook Live and the YouTube Live each and every week. I find that to be very on the edge. It's not that I take liberties because I know we're taping, but there's just something about being in the moment and putting it all out there that once you say it, it's been said.
I know that there's a lot of editing on some of the biggest podcasts out there, but the ones that I really enjoy, yes, there's maybe editing out there, but like we have good friends at Bourbon and Blondes, right? And I know that Abby will go in and she'll edit out the ums and the ahs.
Oh, no, we don't do that.
I can appreciate that to a point, but it's like when people like, how long does it take to edit? Now, granted, I am a little bit behind getting them out there, but I have to find out that break from part one.
Sure.
How long we rambled on in the intermission, because sometimes it's like we just did 5 minutes. Other times it's like, oh my God, we talked for 25 minutes between part one and part two. Like,
because everyone had to take a piss break.
Oh my gosh. So, but I mean, that's the editing we do. I do like that rawness, the conversation, the fact that you can do this and it's not just, I mean, you're a professional live. No, the live radio. I mean, you've been doing this for,
again.
Professional means you're paid for it. So let's not. I didn't say you were good at it.
No, thank you very much. Now we're on the same page.
He is nominated for Podcast of the Year in Columbus. So
what I'm saying is that it's everyone that comes on the show, for example, and maybe they haven't listened, and they're like, "So wait, you guys go for like 2 hours, like sometimes longer? Like, what do you guys talk about?" And then after the fact, they're like, "Oh my God, that was really easy." Because it's just conversation.
Our YouTube is not edited. That's why I always encourage people to check out our YouTube videos, because that is all of it raw, mistakes and all. Yep. Greg Hansberry, sometimes edits the audio and cleans it up a little bit. And since we do record, sometimes a guest has what we call what we've coined as podcast remorse. Where they've said something that,
usually towards the end of this show.
You know, when I said that thing about so and so at the place at that time,
with the goat.
Yeah. You think they could take that out? Because I thought the goat was dead and it's not. So that happens.
It does happen, but I do like the purity of this show, and I love the fact that you enjoy that.
I do.
Sean says,
teach me on what little game I have.
So, but I do want to thank, as we get into part two here, real quick, you guys, and I won't be as long-winded, but patreon.com/bourbonandbs podcast. Your support is amazing. Jonathan Herring is saying that his Patreon contribution might have some stipulations going forward. And
wow. I don't know who you are, Jonathan, but God damn, you are a determined man.
He's a friend of the show. He's also in the cigar industry. And
he wants Nate's shirt off.
You can check out Nate's OnlyFans. I don't know if I have a banner for this. Or just Venmo at Bourbon and BS.
Yeah.
Or if you want to buy us a bottle, or I will make sure that Nate gets the message.
Everybody has a price.
$20 is $20, right?
Say your price.
$100 is $100.
Railing very quickly. Tinder Box at Easton, Columbus, Ohio. Thank you very much. I'm still smoking the Joya de Nicaragua Antaño Gran Reserva GT20. Check them out for all the Drew Estate and Joya de Nicaragua products. We appreciate all the support with that sponsor. Alternate USA, thank you guys very much. Josh Bentley, we're going to be lighting up. Everyone's still on the original. It actually, draw issues aside, it's smoking longer, I guess, maybe because of that.
I will probably smoke a Lucky Strike.
Taking that home with you, though.
To cleanse my palate. And then I'm going to smoke the other cigar, too, on part two. But I'll probably.
Very good.
Yeah. Yes. And Monte Cristo White Series is one of my favorites in that lighter side.
Yeah. Monte Cristo White Series, thank you, Alternate USA and BS Cigar Company. Check them out. Gold and silver. Gold is Plasencia. Silver is Espinosa. Unique blends from both companies, and BS Cigar Company brings that to you. So check them out on social media, or contact us or Tinderbox at Easton if you guys need to get your hands on some of the BS cigars as well. And then also, last but not least, if you guys want to look good, supporting the show, buyjack.com/bourbonandbs for the shirts. The podcast shirt comes in multiple colors, and it's pour one more, light up another. We'll figure this out together. There's also some great BS Cigar Company swag on there, including our 2020 shirt that has now been translated to 2021, 2022, probably 2023. When the world hands you some BS, light it up.
I like it. I like it. I like it. I like it.
Available on a couple colors there as well. So, all right. So part 2 is where we talk about life. If you're listening for the first time, the topic tonight is longevity. I hope I spelled that right.
You did.
It's close enough. But when we were talking, I was talking with Dino about being on the show, and he asked what the topic was earlier this week. And I said, well, I don't have one yet. Do you have any suggestions? And you basically came back, and this is not verbatim, and said,
I said that I could talk to you about my if shit doesn't go my way by 65 plan, what I would do. And then I sent you a video.
Yes.
Which was a piece from 60 Minutes in Australia. And there's been other pieces about this particular place as well, about the island of Ikaria, which is a blue zone. Blue zones are places where people have extreme amounts of longevity, live to be in their 90s and 100. Not just,
this is not a political thing. Just before we get it's not red versus blue. This is a different definition. Just so everyone knows.
Different. This isn't about, just like, hey, making it to 90. These are people who are living productive, fruitful lives free of dementia and disease to in their 90s.
Like the video Steve sent me, there's a 95-year-old man that's still herding goats and moving, running around with them.
100-year-old man.
There's a 100-year-old man
still dancing
hanging out in a cafe, smoking a cigarette, flirting with the reporter and eating ice cream. But Ikaria, they call them blue zones. Ikaria, Greece, an island.
Sardinia,
Italy,
Okinawa,
all places that are
a handful, right?
Yeah, 9. I think there's 9 of them.
There's a handful. I don't know the other ones. Those are the first 3 that come to mind, and that I remember. But part of the reason that they have in common is that they are isolated.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting.
Ikaria is as far away from the mainland in Greece as you can get. It's about 50 kilometers from Turkey.
Mm-hmm.
We'll get into this a little bit later, but when I lived there, I did live there as a child for a couple of years in 1969 through 71. Whenever there was some unrest between Greece and Turkey, the sandbags on the beach would go up, and people would get ready and defensive in case Turkey decided to come to Ikaria and start some shit.
They're a part of Greece, though.
Oh yeah, absolutely a part of Greece. Yeah, definitely.
But they're isolated. They're. I mean, you need to have some sort of defenses.
And they had their own defenses and whatnot. But when I say isolated, that's part. I think what I'm learning is part of the charm and the success of being a blue zone, not being flooded with everything that comes into your world. We live in America, and we are inundated daily, hourly, by the minute with shit on a regular basis.
And trying to preach, if you will, get our lifestyle out there in America.
Right.
That's been going on for many, many years, not just recently.
Yeah. And the fact that these people in Okinawa and Sardinia and Ikaria are isolated, and they get the news eventually. They figure out what's going on eventually. But by the time they get it, how does it affect their daily lives on a regular basis? Apparently not in an adverse way. My father was born in Ikaria. And when we were living in the suburb of Chicago in Dalton, Illinois, for lack of a better word, he became what I like to think of, because I'm still, even at 63 years of age, I'm still trying to put the pieces together on what my old man was thinking back then.
Culture shock?
I think he was disillusioned.
Okay.
Even back in 1968.
Thinking that America was one thing and then came here?
A lot of people, as we know, immigrants came from Europe and came to America, the promised land, and made their way and were very successful. My father's brothers were all very successful.
Also from Ikaria?
Also from Ikaria. Yeah, there was my father, there was Dennis, there was Alexi, there was Simo, and I know I'm missing one. My uncle in California. But there were 5 brothers, 1 sister, I believe. Anyway, they all eventually immigrated to America, and they all made their way. My uncle Dennis, very successful restaurateur, and all of them made their way. There was only one brother that stayed in Greece the whole time. That was Simo. He actually became the governor of the island at one point
Really?
In Ikaria, yeah. He was a very smart man. My uncle Dennis is still the only one that's still living, but my father, to go back, seemed to have gotten disillusioned. And one summer day, unbeknownst to me, 9-year-old Dino finds out that we're living the idyllic life in Dalton, Illinois, a suburb in South Side Chicago, and we're picking up and we're moving to this island in Greece. And
you're moving back. He moved back.
He moved us back, lock, stock, and barrel.
What now? What's the family here? Obviously, your father, yourself, and who else?
My father, my mother, myself, and my sister. Mm-hmm. My father would, once my parents divorced, that's another long story, another rabbit hole. My father remarried, had another son, my half brother.
Was that over in Greece?
Alex, yeah, over in Greece.
Okay.
Yeah, he remarried, divorced again, but in the process had my half brother, Alex. Which, depending on where this podcast goes tonight, maybe we'll get into that a little bit more as well. But my point is, he wanted to go back to that idyllic lifestyle, that simple world. And it was very simple. It's still simple now, even though you can go on the island and get internet.
I was going to say.
And cable. There are modern iPhones, conveniences. Yes, you can you've got all that stuff, but the basic concept of living, how they live, their plant-based diet, the fact that they take naps in the afternoon, the fact that the old people, and well, I mean, they don't start old, they get old, but they get up and they tend their gardens. There's bodies in motion on a regular basis. You saw the guy herding his goats. Mm-hmm. This is what they had to do every day to survive and live. They tend to their gardens and to their plant-based diet. There's not a lot of meat. They have goat. They have chicken. You would think, ooh, Greece, fish. Not so much fish as you think.
They were saying, most of the people, just in that comment, that a lot of the people lived inland.
Right.
Yes.
So they're not like coastal. It's like an hour or so trip to the coast.
Right.
So it wasn't practical.
Well, because it's so mountainous, because it's so mountainous of an island, it was more like a day to get to the coast. And then if you got fish, it was another day hike back.
I do want to interject here just briefly to... We'll share the link. I didn't want to do it before the show. I probably should have, but this is not like an Aborigine type of tribe. I mean, because I think as you're talking about it, you're painting that picture that's not. But when you talk about not the cities, the islands, it's the fact that it's like, oh, they're disconnected. They're just on their own.
Well,
I don't want people to get that viewpoint that it's like, well, yeah, they're just tribal. It's like, no, it's not that. It's civilized. It is a... It's
trust
branched
me.
Off.
Even when I lived there back in 1968 and 69, if you had television, survive without television. Television was on for maybe, even back then, for like 3 or 4 hours a day, at the most.
But you had electricity.
But not everybody had electricity. We were one of the fancy houses that had electricity. Yeah. Now, right up above us, my cousin and his family lived up there, and they did not have electricity. They had an outhouse. It
was all candles. It was
candles during
in
the day,
60s and 70s.
Yeah, and fire to make the food in a beautiful oven. I mean, they did have some gas. They got a gas line for a little stove. Okay. Even though my father had a stove, he would still use a little propane tank and a little.
I guess I have no frame of reference what mainland Greece was like at that time.
Big city, mainland Greece was just
like what I would know in the 60s and 70s.
Whatever big city you want to pick. In 1968, 69, Athens was that. Just the fake. It's just populated, busy, metropolitan.
Developed in that sense.
But the island, and this one being, like I said, the furthest from the mainland, isolation being a factor, there was a much simpler way. And I told you when we were texting back and forth that I recently wrote a 4-page memoir article for Ikaria magazine, which is a magazine that specifically caters to descendants from the island of Ikaria. It's worldwide.
Oh, I was going to say all over the world.
All over the world, yeah. And I wrote a 4-part memoir series called A Boy Without a Country, which was kind of a snapshot, if you will, about the time I spent on the island. I felt like a boy without a country because I went from suburb of Chicago to island in Greece. Mm-hmm. And everything that I knew and loved as a 9-year-old was not the same on an island in Greece.
Shock.
Huge culture shock. And yet at the same time, kind of cool because my mother had the, I don't know if you want to call it insight or smarts to bring certain things from America with her that I think if my father would have seen him, he would have told her, no, forget that. He doesn't need that. He doesn't need that. But my mother brought him. She brought certain books.
I think that's a mother's
comics
there,
book.
where it's like she wanted maybe possibly some sort of sense of normalcy for you as children, that shock value at different age, any age, but at different ages, it'll affect you differently, right?
Yeah, well, it did. So she
you're uprooted. How old are you?
9.
So you're already in school.
Oh, yeah.
So you already have this American education at the time, right? So, and you said suburbs, so you're not, I mean, but it's Dalton, south side.
Dalton, Illinois, south
But I mean,
side.
like you have that, and now all of a sudden you're going back to this, which is perhaps maybe you call it like the old country.
There was definitely,
you didn't have any of those creature comforts that you grew up with already. 9 is not, it's young, but you're a person at that point.
That's why I called
the
article, I called it A Boy Without a Country, because that's exactly how I felt. I felt like a boy without a country. I was, this American who is of Greek descent, but has now moved to an island in Greece.
Greek now.
Yeah, you're Greek now. And that's a story we might get to down the line. But that it's so funny that you said that. You're a Greek boy now. You're a Greek now. That utterance from my cousin put me into almost a panic at one point.
Why?
All right, I'll tell you. The original title of A Boy Without a Country is called I Pledge Allegiance. And in my head, I never believed that we were always going to stay in Greece, that we were going to go back. And
makes sense, right?
It's like the second summer. Like I went through the first summer that we moved there.
How many years were you there? I'm sorry.
I was there for 2. My mother and my sister were there much longer. I ended up coming back to the States by myself. I'll get to
at like 11, 12 years old.
11, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But I would always talk about America. And the reason I would talk about America is because I actually introduced some of the island children to American things. I had board games from America.
Their
that they didn't. I had American records with
wait
me.
To get rid of you.
45s. That
Did you have a record player?
Yes, my mother packed a record player.
So those are some of the contraband.
But at the same time, it was
the creature comforts.
It was the one thing that actually eventually, ironically, connected me to the kids on the island, because they had their own life. They were all about soccer and swimming, and I couldn't swim. I couldn't play soccer. When I tried to play soccer, I was terrible. And I was humiliated, and it was because I was not
that happens here too.
I know it happens here, but I was also not a strong child either. You don't know this, but when I was in my 6 years old, I suffered. I had double pneumonia and a right collapsed lung when I was 6 years of age. Which is why I smoke today.
You beat that shit.
Yeah. Crazy. But
it's a big middle finger to that.
It was a touch and go situation.
Wow.
And so even when at 9, even though I was okay, I still wasn't, a healthy, strong boy, as it were. So my physical attributes and abilities were limited.
I had asthma when I was younger, and I played soccer right when I was like 4, 5, 6, 7 years old. And it was like almost like every game I had the wind knocked out of me.
Exactly.
The soccer ball hit me. I'm like, I'm down.
And also I had
down again. Oh, Jesus.
And no skill set. I didn't know how the game worked. I mean, we're still trying to talk people into soccer now.
Yeah.
Can you imagine
sell them on it?
Me
like,
in
buy a ticket.
69, the soccer. What? You can't use your hands. What? Sorry, what? So it was tough. But those American products that I had, those American tools that I had. So, so basically, that you know, since I got them interested in America, that would also fuel my fire to talk about America. And I was talking about America to my cousin Georgia, and she says, "Why do you keep talking about America? Mm-hmm. You're a Greek boy now, and you're gonna stay a Greek boy." Yeah. And I got so upset that I remember I was on my grandmother's front porch, and I went up and stood on this huge pedestal. And I know this sounds corny as fuck, but it's the truth. I put my hand on my heart, and I started reciting the Pledge of Allegiance.
Wow.
Over and over again. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. And first my cousin was laughing, and then I said it again. And then I said it a third time. Then I said it a fourth time and a fifth time. And then I was crying. And then she was trying to drag, and I was on this big freaking pedestal where, you know, if you fell off of it, you went right into the vineyard of the garden. It was up, and she's like, so now she's afraid that I'm gonna fall down. And you know, and I kept, you know, pushing her away, and I kept reciting it over and over. Eventually they dragged me down, but I was like so upset over the fact that, you know, she was telling me that my fate was sealed and that I would never go back.
You felt stuck.
I did. A boy without a country. That changed though. That changed. That I did go back, but the reasons and how I went back were kind of screwed up too. But in the end run, I mean, everything's connected. Everything's connected. So when we talk about longevity, boys, gotta get back to the root of it all. When I think about that island, and like that's my 65 and older plan. If shit ain't right in my world in 2 years,
up.
I know, it's coming up fast. You know, what am I going to do? I'll be 65. I'm 63 now. I haven't collected Social Security yet.
You retired once. You're back in the workforce like it happens in America.
That didn't work out. But at 65, Medicare, Social Security, sell my house, you know, and then take all of that. I mean,
if you sell your house, you have no place for your whiskey collection, though. That's the problem.
That's all right. I'll start all over again. I'll be drinking wine. Wine was one of the big things you guys saw in the video.
Into that here. Yeah, we'll get into
wine
that,
was very important in the mix.
Yeah.
And still very important today. I try to drink a glass of red wine every day when I can squeeze it in between
whiskeys.
In between the whiskey. But the red wine.
It's a good 1-2 punch there.
But you know what my issue is? My issue with going back is some of those bitter memories of what it was even as a child. So so my question to both of you is, can things that happen in your childhood somehow dramatically affect the quality of your life and your longevity as you're older? And I know some of these things are psychological, some of them are emotional, and I might get into some of those a little bit more here in this segment, but that's the basic question.
Okay.
For you guys right now.
Okay.
Go.
I need to pour something. Get something else. Oh, look at this guy. What do we got here?
So this is a bottle that I've been sitting on for a little over 2.5 years. Mm-hmm. This is
respect.
I specifically
was out of respect.
I specifically have held on to this bottle because of Dino. So Dino back in 2019 was part of a group of people that went down to Jack Daniel's and did a single barrel pick for the state of Ohio.
Did a lot of picks.
Yeah. So there, December of that year was released a single barrel Jack Daniel's. There was a single barrel rye, and then there was also a single barrel proof. And I'd picked up the rye and the single barrel. Last year, I finally cracked open the rye and drank it. I did share that with Steve and some other people. Yeah. But I've been intentionally holding on to this bottle, which still has the OHLQ tag around the neck of it.
Which is
because
I was something they do all the time.
No, they don't.
I specifically wanted.
Howdy to everybody at OHLQ.
Yeah.
Hey, Jim.
I specifically was holding on.
Ann Dimmick's a friend of the show.
Yeah. So I was specifically holding on to this bottle for the next time we had Dino on the podcast.
Well, God bless you. You've done well.
Because also after I bought it, I
whiskeys.
I
ran now and then.
Well,
yeah, he's cheated. He's cheated.
You know, after I bought this bottle and before COVID is when I saw your show at one of the comedy clubs in Columbus, Ohio. And I told you that I'd gotten a bottle of this and I was going to save it for when you came on the pod. Or I just told you I had gotten a bottle.
Right.
And you said that you didn't even get a bottle originally.
So
even though you
at that time.
Not at that time. So even though you were part of the group that picked it,
I hadn't gotten yet.
You didn't get a bottle. So I was
yet,
like,
no.
I'm going to hold on to this until you come on the podcast.
And I've gotten a bottle since then. And that was, let me tell you, picking whiskey for the state of Ohio is no easy job. That was probably a 17-barrel day.
Yeah.
Over the course of the day between
let me see your Glencairn glass. You're getting first pour.
Between the single barrel and the rye. That was a big day.
This actually says on the neck, bottling date was August 27th, 2019. So
right before you're on the podcast last.
Yeah. So this bottle, is almost 3 years old.
Yeah.
It's very special.
It is special. I'm looking forward to it.
Okay, yeah, because
go ahead.
Yeah.
All right, bartender.
There you go.
Thanks, sir. So with the longevity,
the question: does your childhood? You think your childhood
100%.
affects how you live your life and how that might affect your longevity, be it psychological or emotional or even physical, for that matter? You mentioned asthma as a small child.
So I mean, 100% it does. So my schooling or whatever in college, I was a sociology major. 100%. Psychology, I do agree with. I didn't study it as much. I had a couple courses, right, and I did social psychology. I was a sociology major. I do believe that just your surroundings do, the group of people around you. That's the difference for those that aren't into that. And
that affects you.
Absolutely. Psychology is more inner, right? So that's the individual. That's where you get into not only the medical side of it, but like it's all personal. Psychology is you, right? Sociology is groups of people. So to that point, I know that everything really does affect you both psychologically and also from a sociology point. We don't typically talk about the sociology side of it specifically. It's just people. It's all the shit that goes on right now in this country. That's all sociology, in my opinion. But it's such a neglected study of it's such a neglected area of study that it's frustrating to me having a great experience in college about that, because it was all theory. It was like, we were studying like Marxism. We were studying social economical issues. We were doing that all in theory base. It's not going to get you a job.
No.
I'll tell you that right now. I mean, that's why I was in the moving and storage industry for 10 years after college. Great experience as well. But the fact is, it taught you how to think and how to deal with people.
Right.
That's an education a lot of people don't have. So when you ask that question, does this stuff affect you long-term in the longevity side of it? Absolutely. There are certain traumatic moments. There's certain very celebrated moments. There are certain people in your life, whether they're in your family, whether they're people in the neighborhood, whether someone at school, whether it's some experience in your formidable years.
Right.
And this is looking at you, Dino, with what you're saying is that you were in a suburb of a major city in the 60s.
Right. You
grew up to a point of like 9 formidable years. And then all of a sudden you have another set of formidable years over in this
island
that now we kind of talk about on 60 Minutes and, and all this stuff and all these like YouTube videos about that as they're studying this stuff. That's like the more or less utopia for some people.
Well, you know what? And
you're dealing with that from a young age.
And my father, it was probably a return to utopia.
Yeah.
And even my mother, who, went along with whatever my father said, especially back then, found her place. I mean, she stuck to some certain core values that were truly her. I love my mother, by the way. Early shout out to my mom, 86 tomorrow. God bless her.
Cheers.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Cheers
Happy birthday to her.
Happy birthday to her.
What's her name?
Christine.
Cheers.
Chrisa. Happy birthday, Ma. Love you. 86 tomorrow. God bless her. She's aging backwards. I swear to God. She's a pistol.
Ripe old age.
Yeah. And doesn't even live on the island. Lives in Tampa.
She was from there?
No, she was born. She was born in Steubenville, Ohio.
Oh no shit!
Which is where I ended up. Because here's the thing: we spent the summer on the island, but when fall came, I had to go to school, and so we went back to the mainland. My father worked, and I put the air quotes for those of you who are listening and not watching the podcast. His work. As I got older, I tried to figure out what that work involved, but it wasn't. What's the word I'm looking for? It wasn't your everyday. He didn't go to a 9 to 5.
Legit?
No, it wasn't legit. It wasn't legit.
It almost speaks to one of Sean Anderson's comments earlier when you were listening off your dad's brothers.
Right now, your Ikaria is getting a little tainted for me.
Well, no, but it had nothing to do with Ikaria. Now we're in Athens, and I went to the American Community Schools in Athens. Here's the deal: if you worked for the government, if you had any type of government job, your tuition was free. My mother applied for a government job. She didn't get it. At least that's what I thought back then. A little twist coming up later. So we had to pay tuition to go to that school. And it was, in 1969, it was rather expensive. And when I said a boy without a country, it was weird because since I wasn't a government kid, I put the air quotes again, I was actually ostracized by Americans. So I get excited.
In Athens,
Greece. I get excited that I'm going to an American school, but because I'm not a government kid,
you're not
because
son of a diplomat.
I don't have, or even a secretary of a diplomat.
Okay.
I don't have the same privileges because there was a base there as well, and there were PX privileges. Mm-hmm. So I didn't have the same things that the other kids had. And that was almost a big X on me. Like, you are not like us.
Like you said, the title of that is a kid without a country.
A boy without a country. So you
weren't American.
Right.
You weren't Greek.
Even though I thought this is great. I'm going to go back and be with with Americans. And
no one wanted anything to do with
me. Nobody wanted anything to do with me. Nothing.
Jesus.
So, and then I barely made it. That was the 4th grade, I believe. I barely made it through the 4th grade at that school. I was if ADH or ADD is a thing, I probably had it back then because I would literally get up. When we said no, it was a thing.
Yeah.
I would literally get up in the middle of a test and go and start talking to the teacher about something completely whatever's popped into my mind. And she's like, "Get back, take a test,
and get back in line."
Yeah, right? Do your test. It was difficult. The schooling was difficult. It was, and I'll flash forward ahead because when I went back to the States, it was interesting because when I went back to the States, and I'm flashing forward ahead, everything that they were teaching in the 5th or 6th grade back in America, I had already touched upon in the 4th grade.
Shit, I did that
over there.
Moving from Chicago to here in 1st grade, man.
And they thought I was a genius. And they wanted to
wears out though, doesn't it?
Yeah, they wanted to move me up a grade. I'm like, no, I don't want to move up a grade. I want to coast through this. I want to stay in class with people my age. I want to coast through the 6th grade.
1st grade in Chicago suburbs for me, I learned cursive. I was learning, I don't know what else, but I just remember that one stood out. Cursive, we started learning in 1st grade in Chicago suburbs. And I was younger because I was at the very tail end, right? I was born in October, and October 30th was the cutoff. So I was younger. I graduated high school here in Columbus area at 17. I got to here 2nd grade and learning cursive. I'm like,
I got this already nailed.
Yeah.
Bunch of fucking idiots over here.
Same thing,
what
man.
What cow town did I move into?
Whose cursive handwriting was on the board in Mrs. Bronis's class?
I'm gonna guess Dino.
Yeah, mine.
All right, all right.
Mine.
It was a good question, Nate. Do you want to respond to the fact that the younger years?
Do they affect you? Have they affected you as you become older?
And then I want to get back to the longevity.
Yeah,
and the island and everything they do there.
They have, because one of the things that I remember most about my younger years, like in grade school, was like I was bullied like from 1st grade until I graduated.
How so? Just give it. I mean, I don't want to like dive into like traumatic childhood here, but I mean, like, what do you consider bullying?
Well, I mean, there were always a group of kids, majority of the kids, I would say, that were always picking on me about something. Like they would find something to
what was the hot topic, if there was one.
There was, but not going to say it.
Why not?
Okay, that's fair. Oh.
That's mine.
That's fine. That's fine.
I think a lot of kids are bullied, again, being the 40-some-year-old white male that in the 80s, I feel like everyone was bullied.
So, like,
were you a bully?
No, actually, no, not at all.
Because some people would look at you and say, I mean, and granted, that's not fair. They would look at you and say, I bet you that guy was a bully when he was a kid.
Do you know why I'm 220 now and have, to your point, what you're saying, right? So I'm not like the biggest guy in the room all the time, but I'm like, when I said I'm not in bar fights,
right?
It's because when I graduated high school, I was like 145 pounds. So this is one of those things that it's how you respond to that. I don't think I was specifically bullied. I was friends with a lot of different groups of people, but I was never like that top athlete and all that stuff. I'm not trying to responding to you. I'm not trying to take over what you're saying.
No, not at all. I don't think that.
I was not a bully. If anything, I was just go with the flow type of, I didn't like bullies. I also didn't feel like I was bullied on a regular basis. I just was kind of, I want to say I was just kind of there, like 80s.
I remember one point in school. I can't remember what year, but there was one point in school that my mom had picked me up from school, and she asked me how my day was, and I literally told her it was the worst day of my life. And then she picked me up for school the next day, and she goes, "Hey, how was today?" And I said, "Remember what I said about yesterday? Today was worse."
How old were you? We're getting into it tonight, man. We're talking about longevity. Now we're talking about the past. I love this.
Well, no,
it ties in.
The past is connected to where you might be in the future.
I'll probably say at that point, my mom picked me up from
8, 10, 12, 15.
I'll bet you I was a freshman or sophomore.
So 14, 15.
Yeah. And so early on in school, like there were specific things that I got bullied for. And then in middle school, the one that never made sense to me was I got bullied for going through puberty. Like everyone fucking goes through that. Like, oh, cool, you got a zit on your face. Guess what? I bet you did too when you went through puberty. Who gives a fuck? But holy shit, did I get picked on for that?
Okay, picked on. Is there a difference between being bullied and teased?
Oh,
as kids or
as kids?
As kids, or as adults.
That if I were to say that getting teased as an adult is being bullied,
it was not.
I'd be bullied all the time. I get teased all the time, but I have a good sense of humor, and my humor as I've gotten older has become very self-deprecating. So I tease myself. But as a kid,
no one can beat you on bullying yourself.
Right. Yeah. Say what you want. I already think.
Yeah, I already did it. I said worse.
Yeah, exactly.
Go for it.
So is there a difference between being teased as a kid and being bullied as a kid?
I will say yes. I think there is a difference. This was not teasing. Like this was not this was not a mutual thing. This was not, hey, Nate's doing this. No, it was, we're gonna make fun of Nate and we're gonna make everyone else know about it and everyone else make fun of him for it as well.
So that's the bullying. It's the rallying behind it. It's making it public. It's just, you cannot escape it. I look at that. Bullying can be very personal. And again, going back to the psychology versus the sociology side of it, and they don't talk about this a whole lot, I don't think, in the mass media. Bullying also is not talked about anymore. It was like 6 months, 12 months, whatever ago, but now we have different.
Cyberbullying became
but I'm just saying, like, cyberbullying actually fit in really well to just the public bullying because it is out there in public. It made it easier to bully, right?
Right.
But what I want to ask you, Nate, on this topic that we're talking about is, what would you tell your younger self now? So if you were the one picking you up, right? So you, like, not your mom, you're not your mom, but like Victoria, thank you very much for watching. I mean, she always does. But it's like, you're not your mom, but you're picking your younger self up. We're going back to the future style, right? You know what I mean? you go back and you're picking yourself up on the worst day, and then the next day was now the worst day. What advice would you give yourself? Because I think this is something that is the longevity side of it. Is when you ask, does it carry forward? Does it like mold you into that? Absolutely. But do you carry that chip on your shoulder so you never grow from it? Or if you had the opportunity to mold your younger self so that you don't.
If I could go back and give my younger self advice, it would be to stand up for myself sooner than I did.
How?
So
physically, mentally,
physically. So my mom always used to tell me that, like when I was in middle school, because I was a little bit bigger than some of my classmates that were bullying me all the time.
Bigger how?
I was physically bigger.
It's not overweight. You were just
no.
you matured faster.
So, 7th and 8th grade, I played football. I was a lineman and a linebacker. So like 7th grade or 8th grade, I was 5'8", 160 pounds.
Okay.
And one of the kids that used to
college, but
one of the kids that used to bully me all the time, when we graduated, he was 140, 145, was goalie for soccer team. And my 8th grade year, so in middle school, our lockers were always assigned alphabetically. And because of our last names, his was always right next to mine.
Oh, no.
And so there was one day in 8th grade, before the first class period, we're at our lockers and he just starts mouthing off. And I got tired of it and I just shoved him into his locker. Because my mom always told me, just shove them. Once they realize how strong you are, like they'll back off. My dad always told me to do what he did when he got bullied as a kid, and it was just beat the shit out of him. Just punch him in the face, beat the shit out of him. That's exactly what my dad did.
America.
And that's why my dad still to this day with his group of friends has the nickname Muhammad, because he beat the shit out of someone that was picking on him. His younger brother ended up doing the exact same thing.
Your advice to your younger self was beat the shit out of the kid.
Not necessarily beat the shit out of him.
All right, I'm just seeing where we're going with this.
Two particular people, when I did eventually stick up for myself physically, those two people stopped fucking with me.
Okay.
So if I could go back to my younger self, because I was always the good kid. I was always the nerdy kid in school. Like even my senior year when I was co-captain of the football team, because I was, in the top 5 of my class GPA wise, I was not a popular person whatsoever. So it's not like I would have been ruining a reputation or anything, because sticking up for yourself has nothing to do with, necessarily how you're going to finish academically.
Right.
That has nothing to do with the grade you get on a test. But if
unless you're gonna be
I feel like
professional fighter, that doesn't really.
I feel like if I'd have stood up for myself instead of just taking it, if at an earlier age I'd have made it known that this is not okay, that things would have gone smoother for me.
Who did you listen to more, your mother or your father?
Well, so after my parents got divorced when I was 6,
Give me a couch out here.
No, man. This
after my parents.
What I say about rabbit holes?
I mean, they're few and far between. I think you said.
No, I said we're gonna go down some.
Here we go.
Here we go.
After my parents divorced.
About 2 hours.
Yeah. Sorry.
After my parents divorced, I lived with my mom, but my mom and my dad still lived very close to one another. And I was staying over at my dad's every other weekend and Wednesdays. So my dad was still and my dad was always at my sporting events. So my dad was still very much a part of my life growing up, even after my parents had divorced at a young age. But I would say because I lived with my mom and I had to answer to her, I listened more to her than I did my dad. Because
Why'd you ask that?
Because if I got in trouble at school, my dad wasn't the one that I was going home to that would have to discipline me or give me some sort of talk.
Right.
It was my mother. So, I listened to her more
Who did
because
you have the answer to?
That's who I was responsible to.
What was your question? Why did I ask that?
Yeah.
Because as a kid growing up, the one thing that I tried to do the most was get the respect of my father and please my father. And you have to understand, and this might sound very stereotypical, and I apologize, but this is also back in the time that it was, when a Greek man would have a Greek son, he would expect that son to be strong, viral, virile rather, not viral, virile, and viral. I was already sick.
God help you if you were sensitive.
Yeah, right. And I was, what was I? I was sick. I was weak. The list goes on. And I couldn't do anything really to gain the respect of my father. So my natural tendencies shifted over to this woman who lifted me up and supported me and wanted me to do everything she could for me. My mother probably made the most difficult decision of her young life when my second year of schooling in Athens rolled around, and my father said, I'm not paying the tuition for him to go to the American Community School again. He can go to Greek school.
Yeah.
Now, if I were to go to Greek school, I didn't know how to write Greek, read Greek. I could speak Greek, but that was it. I would have had to have started going into the 5th grade. I would have to have started in the 1st grade.
Wow.
Okay. My mother said, and I think my mother chose her moments to stand tall and to be firm. And this was one of them. And she said, I will send him back to the States before I let you do that. And my father said, called her bluff.
Can't prove it.
Said, do it. Well, guess what? She did it. That had to be one of the hardest days ever for my mother to put me in.
Who'd you stay with back there? Who'd she send you back to?
Put me on a boat with a family friend, because the only way you could get at that point, now you can fly to Ikaria from the mainland, but the only way to get to the mainland at that time was a boat. It was a 12-hour boat ride. Depending, they had one that went in the morning, one that went in the night. 12-hour boat ride that went back to the mainland. I was put on a boat with a family friend. That family friend made sure I got to the mainland in Athens safe and got me on a plane. I flew to New York City. My Uncle Steve in New York City met me at the airport and drove me to, I've mentioned this on many a podcast, I consider Steubenville, Ohio to be my hometown now in America, where all my formative years were developed, and where I think I became this idiot that you see in front of you today.
It's a great idiot, though.
Yeah,
really great idiot.
But I lived with my grandparents.
Okay.
My mother's mom and her husband, my yaya and my papu, Stamatula and Nick, and they lived in Steubenville, Ohio. My grandfather was a mill worker, one of those guys that did migrate from the old country and established himself in a small community and worked hard in the mill for 40 years. My grandmother, very devoted. I lived with them. For almost 3 years before my mother and my sister, when my parents finally inevitably divorced and my mother had the courage to leave my father. She came back to Steubenville with my sister, who was almost like a stranger to me at that point, because when my sister, remember, 4 years younger than me, she was a little Greek girl. She was completely assimilated to the Greek culture, spoke Greek, barely spoke any English.
Well, when you were 9, pledging your allegiance to the U.S., she's 5 at that
4 or 5 at the most.
So she didn't know anything.
No. So she spent. So I was there for 2 years. She was there for 5 years.
Yeah. That's her childhood.
That's her childhood. So they eventually came back. So I came back to Steubenville, but I came back by myself. And to call back to I pledge allegiance, and once again, this is going to sound very corny and even cinematic on some level. And I apologize, but because that's how my brain works. But I came back to Steubenville in the fall, in September, and school had already started. School had already been 2 weeks in session, and I was the new student in a 5th grade class at that point. And I remember the teacher. I don't remember the teacher's name. She goes, "We have a new student who just came here to us from Greece. Everybody say hi to." And my full name in English is actually Costandino, Gust, and Dino Tripodis. So in class, my name technically was Gust with a T.
Everyone called you Gus.
Gus, they left off the T completely.
Yeah.
And then some people call me Dino, but Gust, like a gust of wind. But Gust is here from Greece. This is his first day. Everybody, welcome, Gus. And before we start class, everybody, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Oh, here we are.
And dude, guys,
Did you cry?
You had that down at that point.
I didn't cry.
Choked up.
I didn't even choke up.
Really?
But I'm telling you that even in the 5th grade, there was I said the name of the article was A Boy Without a Country. Even in the 5th grade, when I put my hand on my heart in the 5th grade and pledge allegiance to the United States of America, for real, I knew that everything was not perfect. Everything was not completely right. I'm living in a town I've never lived in with grandparents that I've only seen over the course of an occasional holiday from the age of 5 to 9. And now they are responsible for me. Nothing was right. Nothing was perfect, but fuck, I was home. And that was the start of something positive. There were a lot of negatives that followed.
Can I say something here?
Yeah, man, say anything you want. Like I said, it sounds very corny and cinematic, but it was the truth.
Here's what I'm listening to, and I'm not trying to. I mean, I had my issues with my dad. You had a very, from what I heard tonight, because everyone out there, like, we did not talk about this. He sent me this. The island was a fucking utopia. This was like heaven on earth.
It still is heaven on earth.
I'm not talking bad about it. I'm just saying, like, you didn't introduce, like, I didn't know about your dad. I didn't know about, like, you know, we've had good / drunk conversations over the years.
Yes, we have.
Both
after the podcast on my house, especially.
Yeah, I heard about that.
The front
Holy
porch.
Cow.
I remember coming back to reality on the front porch.
if that
like,
was
why
recorded,
are you guys here?
Anyways,
yeah. So my point is that there's a big similarity between that feeling that you had there and what I could maybe imagine that your father dealt with here in the Midwest versus going back to the home country. Wow. There is a sense of identity and belonging that you described that watching what you sent me, you know, these stories about Ikaria, that he, and I'm not trying to dive into the psychological side of it. However, I'm not trying to say there's, I think I'm just going to be honest here. There is a similarity of him wanting to get back to his home country and you getting back to your home country. There's a sense of belonging, that there was a disconnect, not at anyone's fault. This is simply the fact that there was a similarity in who you are as people.
Wow.
And the fact that, like, he identified here.
Yeah.
And I had my own old man issues that he wished that you were that. Oh, man. And you're back here and you're wishing, like, why aren't you like this? But the similarity is like, this is home.
You know what? And I wanted you to finish that thought, but I was so excited because all these years.
Just don't hit me.
What? No, I'm not going to hit you. No, that's amazing.
Hold him back, Nate.
That's amazing.
You never thought about it that way?
No, I swear to God. I swear to.
It's on the wall, man.
Well, you know what? Sometimes you don't always read the wall.
Well,
that's what we do here at the Bourbon and BS podcast.
Sometimes your objectivity is lost. That is I've never realized
You're
that.
With me.
No,
I believe.
I'm not saying you're the same
This is a very personal issue to me.
You know what I'm saying? You're not the same person, but you're the same.
I've never made that parallel. I've never made that parallel before.
Well, listening to your story,
I've never made that parallel before. That's huge. Now
that right there is the podcast shirt.
It is, and
we will figure this out together.
I've had my ups and downs with my old man too.
You know how much therapy I've gone through and never came to that? You know how much money I wasted?
Bills in the mail.
With professionals? And this guy?
Patreon.com/
See, all you had to do
Venmo at Bourbon and BS.
All you had to do was be a guest on this podcast for the third time, and we'll knock that down.
We have a talent here that no one pays us for.
Wow.
Support.
I seriously, I'm not fucking with you. I've never drawn that parallel before.
It's
interesting. It's a fascinating one.
I'm telling you, it's
amazing.
I get what you're saying too. Yeah.
Now that we talked about it, though, it is very apparent, right?
Yeah.
So,
too apparent. No, it's a great parallel.
Out of here, guys. Enjoy.
Yeah.
Sit your ass down.
You're not gonna do any better work tonight than what you just did in the last 5 minutes. So
no.
Nate, and we'll just talk about our.
Like I said, the only people that do mic drops are people who don't know how expensive mics are.
Exactly. That's
an amazing correlation.
That is.
Wow. Yeah.
That right there is one of those highlights to edit and put on the YouTube page.
And then this. So I gave up trying to please my father, and it was all about pleasing mom, pleasing grandma, and so forth and so on. And also, you talk about the seeds that are planted.
It goes back to your question, man. It absolutely goes back to the question of like what you asked us. When your younger years, does it form your later years, right? I mean, does it affect it? 100%. And I think that is, and I'm sorry I'm sorry.
Don't apologize. No, don't apologize.
I feel as though that is absolutely what you were asking is when you lay things out on the table, it is super fascinating that yes, it does, but we don't always realize it. That is the spite. That is the, I'm going to do this because, Nate, I was bullied. I'm going to act this certain way. I'm going to act this certain way because I was in these situations. That, going back to what I said earlier, is that it's not just the people that, like, it's not just you. It's your surroundings. You are socialized growing up. And a lot of the issues that we have right now, and when I watched the YouTube video that you sent us about Ikaria, and I sent that to Nate. Nate, what was your response? And this is bear with me here. What was your response on that? You gotta look it up.
I'm looking up the text. So when I, because it was mainly about why are these people living?
What was your text back, and then I'll let you explain it.
So they're social, active, and don't eat like shit.
This is a common theme on this podcast, is that we talk about all this stuff, and some of our listeners are like, oh, here we go, talking about vitamins again, working out and all this stuff. It's like, you watch this video, I'll post it on this, is that you have these, and I was fascinated. The biggest thing about that is the fact that, yes, they eat a certain way. They grow a lot of their own food. They are
plant-based
remote to a point. But they also, the biggest thing that I looked at, right? So if you guys watch this story, and I'm going to post this tomorrow, is that there's no generational disconnect.
No.
So everyone on this island, right? So I'm not saying like 4-year-olds are drinking wine or anything. I'm just saying socially, maybe they are. I don't know. But on the story, this is just my viewpoint, is that on the story is that they're all together. So the families are together, and because they are small enough as a community, is that they were highlighting, and I'm not saying this is everyday life, it might be, but they were all in the like uptown. They're all in the the town square. They're all in this like community-based thing where they're all dancing.
In the summertime, especially, there's festivals galore.
Yeah, it's
every village has a festival.
But it's not like the kids are over there. There's no that was one of the things. There's no kids table. There's no grandparents table. There's no. Everyone is engaged, no matter if you're 90 years old or if you're 14 years old.
And that's something that we had to adapt to when we first moved there. That was something that was something that you know, I could sit here, I can be here. Yep. You know, that was something we had to adapt to and did. I mean, yes, that's a huge part. Everybody is part of the same sphere, socially speaking.
So here's my plug for the cigar side.
Okay.
If you go into a cigar shop and you've made it very clear, Dino, you're 63 years old.
No, I got no problem.
If you were smoking a cigar next to a guy or a girl that's, say, 21 years old,
all right,
are you going to just preach advice, or are you going to be like, hey, what are you smoking? This is my parallel. When I was watching that and I'm asking, like, I'm like, well, how can we talk about this? Yeah, absolutely, Nate. Be social, be physical, don't eat shit. 100%. What do we do here? It's all online. What did we do the last 2 years before we got back out? We forced ourselves to be hermits with technology. So what did they do? I don't know what they did.
They shut it down pretty harsh during the pandemic. They kept their individual bubbles. They were very strict.
Are they open back up?
They're open back up. But there was one individual who came from a Greek kid who came from London and had COVID and didn't tell anybody. And he came to the island. He was a rich kid, and he came and he visited and he infected a couple of, because they
older people.
They were COVID free, but they were very strict about it at that particular. I'm kind of paraphrasing the edict that went there, but they were like, if you have COVID or if you feel sick, stay put. If you go out and you infect somebody and that person dies, because we're talking about longevity now. Yeah. We're talking about people who are in their 80s, 90s, and in some cases 100.
Centurions,
if you give somebody COVID on the island and you die and they die, they would charge you with murder.
Yeah.
I mean, they were that serious about it.
So what I appreciate that at the time. Hopefully we've
gotten past that.
Exactly. Now that they've understood
that's how strict they were about
because they're looking at
the life and the longevity on that island.
The biggest thing that I took from that video that you sent me, and I want to hear from people out there. We have some good comments coming through. But centenarians, not centurions. All right. I'm sorry, Ray. My grammar is off here. 100 plus people.
Yeah.
Their years. But was the fact that there was a lack of what we deal with in this country and many countries is the dementia.
A lack of it.
That was the biggest thing for me, is that no matter what age you were, and I love the fact that I thought it was a lot of the engagement.
Mm-hmm.
Because I've talked about this on this show. People that I know, my grandmother on my mother's side, she passed away at 94. But up until 89, she had her doctor saying, like, why are you unloading your groceries? This is in LaGrange, Illinois, another suburb of Chicago. She drove her Cadillac in the garage, popped the trunk, carried a couple bags up to the kitchen because it was a detached garage. And as soon as she had a unfortunate incident with gout and she fell, as soon as she left the house at 90, I think it was 91, went to Vegas for her 89th birthday.
Atta girl.
That was the stopwatch. That was a timer.
Right.
That she unfortunately never left that. When I was watching that video, that's what came up to my mind was the fact that it was constant socialization. It was constant activity like you're talking about.
Like they
had a diet. This was not necessarily, it's like, oh, well, I can't cook for myself anymore because I can't get around my house. So I'm going to microwave meals.
I know microwaving.
No.
I mean,
I'm saying, like,
I'm sure a microwave is available now.
I microwaved a clean eats meal that, it was a healthy meal.
Yeah.
But if you buy it at the store that's in the freezer for the last 6 months and it's like, oh, you finally bought it. It's like, you look at what's in there. It's like so much sodium, so many preservatives.
Right.
I'm not saying you have to grow your own goddamn fruit and vegetables. But the fact that society that you introduced to us,
olive oil.
They're like, if you don't have olive oil in your house, you can't.
Rosemary, lemon, garlic.
If you don't have that, you can't cook. I'm like,
you don't need a lot of things. Like I said, plant-based diet.
What was the wine that they drink? Like, is that like 12 to? Was that like the 12 to 15% stuff that we normally bottle, or is that like
that reporter that took a sniff of that? You saw her face.
Yeah, no, that's some homemade shit.
Okay.
My father made his own wine. My father made his own wine.
But no, like from the social aspect, on that video,
family members made their own wine.
On that video, they regularly get together for these little events where there's music.
Not little events.
Not little.
Well, they're festivals. They call Panagiria.
But there's music. They're all dancing. They're socializing. They're drinking. They
start like at 10 or 11 o'clock in the morning.
10, 11 a.m.
And go until 10 or 11 o'clock in the morning. They don't stop. Now, those are the festivals. Now, I'm not talking that's how it is every day.
No.
In Ikaria. But they do take regular naps. They shut down. A lot of places shut down. On the island in the summertime, not everything shuts down because that is a big tourist season.
Mm-hmm.
The descendants of Ikaria, people come back to the island. I went back to the island. I went back when I was 14. I went back in my 30s, and I went back when my father took ill and eventually died. But they had nightclubs on the island. I mean, they have. I don't want you to think like Steve was saying. It's not tribal by any sense of the imagination.
No.
But while there are modern conveniences on the island now, there is still a sense of isolation. If I were to move there tomorrow,
when I watched that, not to cut you off, but when I watched that video, I didn't see anyone looking at a cell phone.
No.
I didn't see anyone watching TV.
TV.
They may have that, yes,
they
but
have it now.
but they're not. But they're not spending like their entire evening every day watching TV.
But you understand, as a kid, when the TV came on for 4 hours when I was living there in 1969, I was watching it.
Yeah,
and I was watching. They were showing reruns of Bonanza and old TV shows.
They also. I also didn't see
dubbed in Greek.
I also didn't see any cars. Like they're walking just about everywhere.
Yes, there are vehicles. There are vehicles, but there are cars, and there's still people that a lot of walking.
Yeah, but that's the point. Like these people are active because most of them are walking everywhere. They're being social. They're not staying inside their house cooped up. Just staring at the television, and that's like they're being social. They're hanging out with each other.
Step up to the mic,
that was earlier. He's good.
You mentioned social. When I was there in the fall, when my father took ill and eventually passed away, I forgot that the summertime. While you stepped out for a second, Steve, the summertime is very touristy now in Ikaria. A lot of the descendants of the island come back and visit their families, their children. They do it.
What year was that?
All these years now. I'm talking about as we speak.
I feel like it's gotten more publicity too from the stories, right? So now
it has. But in the fall and in the winters, people become very social. They don't just hunker down into the fall and the winter. They get it becomes a quieter place, probably going back to colder a little bit, not like freezing cold, but they have a winter.
They're still in the mid.
But they go to people's houses. They socialize. They communicate. They hang out together. It's a different type of socialization. They don't just go into their homes and isolate themselves until the spring and the summer. No, they make a point to get together.
Would you compare it to what we think about back in the 60s, right? And I've talked about this on the podcast here, is looking around here. The last time you were here, this is now, you're going back almost like 2 years,
at least
2.5 years ago. So at that time, I'm no longer with my ex that lives here, and I was going to ask that off the podcast. Yeah, but that part is the fact that it's like, as we were growing into this neighborhood, the time in this day and age in Midwest Ohio, everyone has this, like, I feel like a lot of people think the Midwest is a lot like Ikaria, right? Like, they literally think that. I'm not saying this was like we had a like bad relationship at the time, but we moved, like, I moved in, she moved in, and it took longer. Now that I'm single, now I've got a girlfriend, but I have a text thread with 2 couples across the street in the cul-de-sac. We go to concerts. Yeah. They ask, "Hey, what are you doing on Friday?" You didn't have that before? No. Why? I feel like not a lot of people do. Nate, your neighbors on your street, do you have a text thread?
Nope.
Do you have a block party?
Well, I mean, I have a text thread with my next door neighbor that we switched houses.
No, that makes sense. That makes sense.
No, I have a text thread with my next door neighbors. I've always had a text thread.
Do you think that's normal these days?
I don't know if it's normal. When I first moved in, I've been living in my house now for 22 years, and I met them the first year I was there, obviously, and I've watched their daughters grow up. From there was a 4-year-old, the 2-year-old, and I've watched them grow up into these beautiful, successful young women. And so,
the reason I bring that up, it's not about my past or anything. What I'm saying is
just them.
No, but you've been in this garage.
Yeah.
What's interesting to me is that it takes a little bit of effort. It takes a little bit of understanding. It takes a little bit of openness that, today, Ben over here in this house, married, 2 kids, text Matt, who's over here, moved in after you were on the podcast. He's like, "Hey, we had a package delivered and we're out of town. Like, you mind grabbing this package?" It's like, there's so many people that are just like, I don't know what to do. It's sitting on our porch. There's no community. When I was watching the video, I guess the long story short, and I'm not trying to bring,
that's what appealed to you the most.
What appealed to me is when Nate went to his be social, be active, and don't eat shit. We talk about that all the time on this show. It's so foreign to people, and I talk about it on this show. And what I like about that remoteness of those people. Who are they caring about on a daily basis? I would assume it's their island, it's their community. It's keeping it strong. It's taking care of the people around them. It's not about socialism. It's not about government. It's literally about your neighbors. It is the people that you see every day. And if they're struggling, if they look differently, they're in a bad mood, you will approach them probably at the market while you're buying your veggies, you're doing that stuff. It's the same thing as if they're texting me. This is the translation to me. Right. They're texting me and we all go out together and one person has a bad night and all of a sudden you're like, I wonder what's up with so-and-so. I wonder what's up with this. I hope everything's okay. Let's invite them over. Let's see if they want to have dinner. Let's, Matt and Abby across the street, they're expecting. This is a big thing for us. And how many people in Ikaria versus goddamn even Main Street USA today, if someone is expecting, are there casseroles coming over anymore? Yes. Are there people that are saying, hey, what do you need? If you say yes.
I say in Ikaria, I would say.
No, here.
Oh, here. Well.
Versus, compare the two.
All right.
Ikaria,
and
also Main Street USA.
It's island wide, and in Ikaria's case, village wise. It's an island. My cousin Dino, same first name, We call it the Rock. You mentioned earlier it's a very rocky, mountainous island. It is. It's funny on our side of the island, it's rocks. On the other side of the island, it's beautiful sand. It's weird, but there is a sense of community in the village. Whether it's the house right next to you or the house 3 doors up from you, everybody knows what's going on with everybody. Who's sick, who's hungry, who needs help with this, who needs help with that. Now, these same people you talk about, being neighborly and whatnot, these same men and women, for that matter, will go down to the coffee shops and argue vehemently about politics and sports.
Cigar shop these days.
Yeah, I mean, to the point where you think it's going to come to fisticuffs.
Know what happens?
And then they just they agree to disagree, and then they go back.
They do it again the next morning.
They do it the next morning. They do it the next morning.
That's healthy to debate. That's healthy.
We've talked about it in the cigar shop. Like, there are times, that back section of the Tinder Box at Easton, the chairs that are there. There have been times where, all the chairs have been full with a bunch of guys. They're all 50s and up, and they're all sitting there having discussions or arguments about something, and it's usually like 4-1, 5 against 1. But that one person that feels like that everyone else is kind of going against,
sometimes,
they're still going to come back the next time. And they come back the next time and do it, and they're going to sit down in those chairs or in the couches next door at Fido Irish Pub. They're still going to sit with those same people, have the same conversations, smoke cigars, drink whiskey, or whatever people are buying. They're still going to have that interaction because there's that sense of community with one another.
I get it.
That's the biggest thing about this, what I'm talking about. Longevity. What I learned from what you showed me on that video of Ikaria is there's a lot to unpack there, right? There's a lot to unfold.
We're not gonna unfold it all tonight because we're
no, but I'm saying you can't get away from processed foods. You can try. I get there's Whole Foods, there's Trader Joe's, there's all these but
if you have no choice,
that are a lot organic, you have no choice.
You have no choice.
We do,
but if you have no choice, you go to the island and I want a bologna. We don't have bologna.
No, but even dogs. Like Tony Tanner from Butcher and Grocer that was a guest on here, his bologna is actually like all meat.
Okay, but I'm saying
you don't have Oscar Mayer.
Yeah. You
don't have you have 3 weeks of sodium in this.
Right.
I do think there is what I like about Ikaria and this longevity and what they were trying. It was 3 years ago. They had people that were like, the scientists were looking at DNA. They're looking at the food. They're doing DNA of the food. They're looking at all this stuff. They're looking for this fountain of youth thing. But what I got from it, and I got to tell you, Ikaria, people fight.
Mm-hmm.
They probably get divorced.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not 50%, but they get divorced. Their
father did.
Aren't happy, right? So things happen there.
No, real life happens.
The longevity, and people also probably die at fucking 54.
There are some people that are
that everyone lives. They spin this story that it's like everyone lives.
It's not Cocoon. It's not Cocoon where everybody is just.
there's an '80s movie reference.
It's not that, but there are people that die.
When the aliens come again.
Yeah.
But my point is that what I love about
the majority
is it's a smaller thing. What I saw on that video when we texted back and forth, and I think the only thing that I'll say on this is that I have been a big proponent recently in this country is that there are very many people that are more concerned with strangers they will never meet and their well-being. When I saw the story, I'm not saying I'm right or wrong. What I felt comforted in is the fact that in a smaller, remote community, that tribal side did come out, that you have to cohabitate with these people, so we might as well have a good time. And I care about the people that are in my neighborhood, in my family. The divorce rate I don't think they didn't highlight it in the story. They didn't talk
No,
about it.
I don't know.
It's not sky high. I don't
Probably
think
not.
I feel like it's not, but it's because they highlighted this fountain of youth, 90, 100-year-old person that they have their wits about them.
No dementia.
They eat healthy.
No Parkinson's.
They're out and about, and
Active.
They socialize with the youth. And the youth, full circle, socialize with their elders.
Yep. That's huge.
It seems so simple, and yet we continue to divide our youth and our elders.
Right.
No one understands anyone. If you make less money than me, you don't understand me. If you live in a different part of the fucking country, this is the big thing there for me. It's not even that you live in a different part of the state. You live in the city. I live in the country. It's the fact that you live in a different state that's so many miles away. Clearly, I don't agree with you. Well, and from the outside looking in, it makes a lot of sense based on this story.
I was gonna say, don't forget, the United States is not as homogenous as that island is.
No, it's not.
But it's big.
There's a homogeneity to that island. You're right. Yeah, they're right. And there's a certain appeal to someday returning it. I mean, it's kind of a wish list. It's like it's kind of an escape clause. It's like, I know that I have the capabilities and the abilities to do it, but once again, I have to deal with the memories of the island as well. Yeah. And I got to get out of here because I got to work in the morning. So I'm going to try to wrap it up here.
Closing remarks right now.
I went back to Greece a few times. I went back when I was 14 and saw my father, and I asked him if he and my mother were going to get back together. My mother was living back in Steubenville at that time. He said no. And that's when I decided to be a man, and like, okay, I had to help my mom. I got a job.
Take care of your mom.
I got a job at 14, and started working through high school and doing my part. And then I went 20 years without seeing my old man. And when my sister got married, my father came back for the wedding, and my Uncle Dennis, God bless him, said, you need to go spend some time with your father. He bought me a ticket to Greece. I couldn't afford it at the time. And I went back and spent a month and a half with my father. Also met my half brother for the first time.
Yeah, for sure.
Alexi, he was 18 years of age.
How old were you?
I was in my 30s. I was 30. So there was a little bit of
almost half your age.
Yeah, difference there. And told my brother that, if he ever came to the States, you could stay with me. He did come to the States. He stayed with my Uncle Dennis. He wasn't happy there. Came to Columbus, Ohio, stayed with me.
Yeah.
The years passed by. My father came back one time to Columbus, Ohio, when both my half brother and I were here. He came back for my Uncle Dennis's wife's funeral.
Jeez.
And we spent about 4 or 5 days together. Those 4 or 5 days were they were wonderful and almost ironically punishing in a way.
Torturous.
Well, because we had torturous, but in the right way.
Why?
Because he was proud of both of his sons.
Yeah.
And we had laughter, we had food, we had drink, we had conversation. And there was like 4 days. I remember taking him back to Port Columbus and walking away from that going like, what the fuck? Why couldn't it have always been like that on some level?
If I may.
Yeah, please, may.
I have no training in this, but what I said earlier.
Apparently you do.
What I said earlier was the fact that I have some identity to that too with my old man.
Mm-hmm.
But it is the fact that you got to a certain age and he got to a certain age.
Possibly.
Because he was no longer, in a sense, he's always your dad, right? Your mom's always your mom. That's different, right?
My mom could do no wrong by me, even though she did some wrong.
The thing is that as you've gotten older,
yeah,
you've changed. You're still stubborn.
I don't know if I've changed.
Nah, you're still stubborn, but you're still soft.
I don't know if I've changed as so much as I've developed.
Correct.
And I guess,
however,
but I guess development is changed. So you're right.
My biggest thing is the fact that you guys hit a point where it was like he could no longer control you or have in any way dictate your life. Mm-hmm. And the similarities that I mentioned earlier, I still am really stumbling on the fact that you haven't had that conversation with anyone about that. The fact that like about who you were and where you were in. That the thing is that you have a bigger geographic who you were than most people do. Mm-hmm. So you can't relate to a lot of people. And he probably can't relate to a lot of people.
No, he did not relate to a lot of people.
That's the problem, is that because it
everybody loved my father, but he 100%. Did not relate so much to people. He
was authentically himself.
Yes.
You have, and I'll say this, I'm going to take one more pour and I will not get after you, Dino. You have made a career off of people enjoying you.
I wish, yeah, and thank you. It took a minute to get there because that wasn't always the case. I mean, it didn't happen until late in my 20s, early 30s, where that skill set showed itself. But yeah, and that was one of the things that my father was most proud of when he came back to visit. And he went away.
Back to the early in podcast.
What's that?
You became a man.
Yeah.
You stood up for yourself. You were able to take care of yourself.
Yeah. That impressed him.
You talked about it early in the podcast. You said that, the fact that you had the collapsed lung, you couldn't be a man.
My father came back and saw me living a life with a career that was making people, I was killing it. There were people in the house. He loved the fact that I was this great host. There was a Monday night poker game and he was there and he was.
People loved you, much like you said, people loved him.
Yeah. And he enjoyed that.
I'm taking your story.
He was hitting on some of my buddy's girlfriends,
Well, all right. We digress. We're going off
that
script
was my
here.
own man,
All right, let's get back on the cue cards here. Hang on.
But
yeah.
And then I didn't see him again. It was a big period of time until my brother said that Dad is sick and I'm going to go back and take care of Dad. And I said, okay, and he went back and he took care of my father. And then I decided.
I do love the fact that you changed just in conversation. I'm just pointing out. Your stepbrother,
my half brother,
and then you called him your brother as you.
Well,
I'm just saying
my brother. I have issues. I have issues with my half brother that I'm not going to get into on this particular podcast. But at that particular point, he was my brother. I saved my brother on many occasions when he was living here in Columbus as he grew and developed. Right. And we won't get into the details of that because they're deep, and we'll be here for another 2 hours. But he went back. Not tonight. He went back to Greece. Took care of my father. And then at one point, my father, my sister, and I decided that we were going to go to Greece while he had cancer. And we went to Greece. And if you didn't know my father had cancer at the time when we went to go back to visit him, you wouldn't know he had cancer.
How old was he?
He was, at that point, he was 79, 80 years old.
Okay.
How do you get cancer on the island of longevity, you say?
No.
Yes, he ate the plant-based diet. He swam. He did everything, but he also
simple answer.
But he also smoked 5 packs of cigarettes a day.
There it is.
And
I did like the fact that people talked about like you indulge, but not so much.
Not
right?
so much. He overindulged.
It's like you drink like 2 to 3 glasses of wine.
I don't think my father drank enough wine.
That might be part of it because that
I don't think he drank. He wasn't a big drinker.
The doctor or like the PhD that wrote the blue zones. Mm-hmm. He's like, so we also found out that 2 to 3 is not the max.
Not the max.
You remember that?
Yeah, I do.
He's like, that. So like he didn't like say like you can drink a bottle and a half of wine. He's just like, yeah, so 2 to 3 was not like the max, but it was like healthy to have a little bit of that.
But you talk about the progression of life and you talk about longevity. And I went back with my sister and my daughter, who finally got to see her grandfather for an extended length of time. And it was a different man, and I saw sides of him that I'd never seen before. I had conversations with him that I never had before, and still left with questions and mysteries because we were only there for 2 weeks before it was all
still
said.
have those.
Are you kidding me?
Dude, I still have them.
Because when I came back, once again, a long period of time went through, and then I got the call that your father is sick. He's dying. You need to come see him before he dies. And it was September of 2006. And I flew to the island. Now you could fly in and go to the island. And I went and saw my father. And he was in this just horrible hospital on the island. I call it the Stephen King Memorial Hospital because that's what it reminded me of.
Gorgeous.
It was just, the flickering lights and just nobody on staff, and my father in this dingy room with my brother, God bless him, changing his bed sore pads.
Instead of Overlook hotels, Overlook Hospital.
The Overlook Hospital. It was just
man.
Yeah, it was awful. It was awful. And I went and saw my father, and I made my peace with him.
That was on the island?
On the island. Now, he'd gone to Athens for treatments for therapy and whatnot.
I'm not trying to make a point, but
he was on the island.
That island is not prepared for people to.
Not really. Not really.
Because everyone I'm not trying to make a point here.
This
but
is 2006, and there were people still smoking in the freaking hospital. I mean, they were like, hey, your father's very ill. Well, put the cigarette down.
But what do we glorify? The older 90, 100-year-olds. The news story didn't talk about the 80-year-olds.
The 80-year-olds that have cancer. No.
But at 80 years old, it's a good life too.
No, he had, trust me, I have no doubt that my father lived a very full and fruitful life, which I'm still finding out about. But I made my peace with him, and I said, Pop, you can, I'm here, despite our differences over the years, you can go.
You're still his son.
And I left him, and he didn't die. And I went back the next day, and I had the same conversation, and he didn't die. And I went back a week later.
I feel like this
is
a
conversation.
Is this a bit?
This is the truth. This is the truth.
No, I know it's the truth.
Were
but
those,
I feel like you made it a bit at some point.
Were those hard conversations to have with him?
The first one was hard. The second and third one was kind of repetitive.
Good to see you again.
Yeah. All right, Pop, I'm here again. I'm going to say it one more time.
All right. Thank you for lightening up.
It's like Groundhog Day. Groundhog's Day.
You want to drink, Pop?
Anything. And then I went down to the cafes, and I saw an old friend of his, and he said to me, how's your father doing? I said, he's not doing well. I keep thinking he's going to go, but he's still hanging on.
Stubborn.
Yeah. And this guy said the most remarkable thing to me that I've ever heard spontaneously out of somebody. He said to me, he had a glass in his hand.
All right.
He says, it's a sorrowful glass. Best to drink it in one gulp. Right? I mean, that just came out of his freaking mouth, and I'm like,
there we go. Kill it.
That's amazing. That's amazing. An amazing thing to say, and that stuck with me. And my father didn't die. He didn't die
at the moment.
I went back to Columbus, Ohio, because I had to get back to work, and I thought, you know what? As much grief and pain as he caused me, I know what this son of a bitch is going to do. As soon as I land, he's going to die, and I'm going to go right the freak back to the island. No, he made it through September. He made it through October.
Months.
He made it to November of 2006. Ohio State was number 1. Michigan was number 2. And they were playing, and my college roommate was in the band, and he had graduated since then, and we had all graduated, but he had tickets on the 45-yard line, and he says, you want to go to the Ohio State Michigan game? And I said, fuck yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Let's go.
One battle number 2, we're on it. Yeah. He says, get done deal. And so the Thursday for the Ohio State Michigan game in 2006, my father dies. And I knew my sister called me, we have to get to Greece as soon as possible. And I knew, despite our differences.
Did you know when that call came in?
Yeah, I remember when that call came in.
No, but did you know?
Did I know when that call came in? That
when the call was ringing up on your phone, you had a cell phone, right?
Yeah.
When that call came in,
and when it was my sister, and my sister told me, yeah, I knew.
No, but did you know when you saw her name on your phone?
I know you did.
Well, I was kind of waiting for it, but I didn't think,
No,
actually,
this is something.
Yes, I did, but I didn't, and I was hoping not, because I thought to myself,
that's the only reason I asked that. I'm not trying to make it about myself. I'm not trying to. There is this
inner sense of knowing.
Yeah, I'm not one to say that we all know when energy leaves. I'm not trying to get to that point. You know
I had no feeling of that.
But when you see a certain name on your phone at a certain hour, that's not common.
It was
something is off.
Yeah, it was a later call.
You weren't expecting it, but you weren't surprised.
I wasn't surprised.
Yeah.
I was disappointed because I thought to myself, I know as a good son, I have to get on a plane to Greece.
Well, there you go. Putting that on
and
yourself.
Bury my father. As a Buckeye fan, I kept thinking.
All right. You had me until
son of a bitch.
God damn it. I'll buy a Buckeye jersey.
As a Buckeye fan, I thought he can't get any more dead.
Did the Buckeyes win?
Yes, the
Buckeyes won. Of course, I didn't go to the game. I went to the island. And
Did you buy a jersey?
I didn't buy a jersey. It wasn't to buy a jersey, but it's funny when we were waiting to get on the plane. When we were waiting to get on the plane,
you did have me there, Dino.
No, that's kind of the way I felt. Yes, I did turn it into humor because that's what I do. I take the pain in my life and I turn it into humor.
Yeah,
but that's kind of a true story. I
enjoyable
felt that
and also
exaggerated to an extent. But there was we were watching. It wasn't. You couldn't get the 2006. There was a computer in this hotel.
There's no streaming there.
There was no streaming. All there was these little blips about what was going on with the game, and I remember just trying to follow it and watch it because the game was going on while we weren't on the island yet. And I was watching, trying to find out what was going on with the Ohio State game. Then we went to the island, and my father was passed, and there was a funeral, and I was just amazed at the outpouring of love.
How many people? A lot.
Oh, hundreds of people.
You didn't know though, right?
No, I mean, you're talking about a man who never left the island from the time we got there in 1969.
Let me tell you this,
until 2006.
He was 80.
82, 83 maybe.
On that island. That is, I don't want to say young, but that is
below average.
That's a father.
His loss would have been considered a sudden, early loss on the island at 80.
That's why the support's there. The community,
but they also loved him. They also loved him, and that bothered me on some level.
No, I get it.
Because was it because they had a better relationship with him than you did?
Oh, my first cousin Dino 100%. Had a better relationship.
Your first cousin was Dino?
My first, all the firstborns.
Was it Gus Dino?
All the firstborns are named after our grandfather.
Gus Dino.
There was 1, 2, 3, 4.
Who is the oldest?
I think the oldest the oldest may have passed. He had diabetes. There's my cousin Dino, who's a very renowned psychologist in California. There is my other cousin Dino, who's a successful restaurateur in St. Joe's, Michigan.
Do they all leave?
And then there's me. Yeah. What? Leave?
They all left the island.
Oh, no, they weren't born on the island. They were born here in the States.
So at some point, people left.
But my first cousin, Dino from St. Joe's, at that time, Indiana, had a better relationship with my father. And I used to envy him for having these great stories about my dad that I never had.
Yeah.
He had stories about my dad in Las Vegas. He was with my father in Las Vegas. I was never in Las Vegas with my father. He had stories because he went back every summer. And I always said to myself, I was always envious because he was like you. He was big, strong. Okay.
Yeah. I'm heavy. I'm not trying to eat healthier. Like, I'm not,
he was big. And so I think my Uncle Dennis's son, Dino, was the son that my father wished he had. That's why they kind of gravitated together. But he was his best buddy. And I was like, and I've told him this 1,000 times. So envious of the relationship you have with my father.
I was going to ask, were there people you were jealous about that had a better?
Jealous of the relationship, not jealous of my cousin.
Okay.
There's a reason for that, right?
Yeah, there's a reason. And I
like, look at this whole topic of part 2 of longevity. And Dino, you really steered it. And steered it before we started the conversation about Ikaria and where you're from. If any of you guys watch this YouTube video or any of the other, it's all about, I hate to say it, I know the one you sent me was based out of Australia.
It was a 60 minutes piece out of Australia, but they nailed it.
They nailed it to a point. It's always short-sighted. The grass is always greener.
Mm-hmm.
I think there are things you can take from it. I think there are things that we as Americans, that's what I was asking, all these cousins, what happened? They all came over here.
All the brothers came over here except for one. Simo stayed.
My point is that there's a lot of positives to this stuff, but you really have stay true to it. Anything in life.
And that's what I think about. Go ahead. I don't want to interrupt you. Go ahead.
No, I just think anything in life, and it's you can stay true and you can get beat up and do all the stuff that like Nate was talking about, being younger and in his mind being bullied. You can learn from it. You can grow from it. Dino, you asked earlier in the part 2, especially, is that, like what in your younger years formed you into who you are. It's about growth to me, because sometimes if you always have that chip on your shoulder, there can be some positive, but if you use that chip to push away good people in your life,
I've done that.
I think a lot of us have.
I've done
that, but it's not a good thing.
No.
Now. And I think that, to go full circle, Dino talking about, and I actually really appreciate the fact that through conversation, I was able to listen to you and also just almost regurgitate back to you, like you and your dad. And the fact that this is the first time in this garage on a fucking cul-de-sac in Columbus, Ohio. There's no feed. There's no nothing. There's literally just someone listening to what someone says about their life.
Mm-hmm.
That is sadly mistaken as someone taking advantage of someone a lot of the times because they're trying to profit.
Right.
But when someone actually has that conversation with someone and we learn from each other, that's this part 2. This is beyond the BS. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to I'm not trying to commercialize this. It's literally that's fucking it, man. That's tomorrow morning. You have to be on Sunday 95 and you're gonna do all your stuff.
You're talking about stuff that is.
But tomorrow morning,
compared to this fluff,
there's no way we could talk about this.
No, but the best thing is, and the sad part is that you could have a once a week where we do this on fucking fluff radio. I know you don't believe in this.
No, I do believe in it.
But the housewives, my mom, the people that listen to this stuff, they would take away from that if you didn't. you didn't attack them. You'd be like,
I'm not attacking anybody.
It's just real life. And I love the fact that we talked about this, because I know that I've been out my father's cemetery grave. And I've you probably seen it on social media.
Yeah.
But I post it, and there are a very small amount of people that have asked me, why do you do that? The majority of people like and comment and actually text me and say, you're absolutely right. It's not always perfect. You gotta learn from it.
And I did. And I'm not. And when I tell you this story, I'm not trying to one up you by any stretch of the imagination.
It's not that hard.
But when we were on the island and they were burying my father in Greece, they open up the casket.
Yeah.
And dirt fell on my father's face, and my sister was freaking out.
She didn't want to disrespect.
Yeah, and I mean, it was okay for the villagers, but so my brother Alex dropped into the hole and wiped the dirt off my father's face to calm my sister. Jeez. And then everything was fine. They closed the casket, and I doubt that my sister knows that I'm on Bourbon and BS tonight. But
where she live?
She lives down in Dunedin, Florida.
I'll send it to her.
No, don't send it to her.
You got,
because I don't even know if I want her to hear this, because
it's fair.
But I will share it. As everybody was leaving the burial ground to go into the church for coffee and cookies, like a lot of people do after a funeral, and ouzo and drink.
It's just a cheap way to do it.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. I've been there. Yeah. My dad's funeral. I've been to funerals. It's like,
everybody
you have cookies. No one eats these. Like, this is terrible. They're terrible cookies.
No, not the Greek cookies. The Greek cookies are awesome. Right. And the ouzo was awesome too.
I'm not Greek.
But everybody went, and my brother and my sister said, "Are you coming?" And I said, "No, I'll be there in a second." And I hung back, because I would tell you, my sister cried, my brother cried during the funeral. I didn't cry. I still haven't cried in all these years,
bro.
No. And I was standing there, and they didn't have the big shovels to, when they bury somebody on the island, even back then in 2006, they literally take a shovel and bury them. I mean, they filled the grave in.
You haven't cried?
No.
Come on.
And I'll tell you why.
All right, please, because I'm upset about this.
I will. And I was standing there, and the grave digger, for lack of a better word, said to me in Greek,
accurate.
Yes, thamavoithesis, which in Greek means, "Are you going to help me?" Thamavoithesis, na pame mesa ya ouzo ke fagita. Can we, are you going to help me so we can go in and drink ouzo and get some food quicker?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, what? And I took a shovel and I started to fill in my dad's grave. And my sister doesn't know this. My brother doesn't. My half brother doesn't know this.
No one knows this.
And with each shovel of dirt, it's, you guys know that I make films and do things, so I can relate it to that. It was like that cinematic version. It's like with each shovel of dirt, a memory, a lot of them which I have not shared tonight, came back flooding in. And at one point, I did not fill the grave. I stopped at one point, but it was like, that was kind of like some bizarre kind of closure.
Yeah, no, not bizarre. That absolutely is
on
closure.
Some level.
That is.
And you asked me, have I cried? No, I didn't cry then. I still haven't cried after almost 16 years. And no, I don't even hold it in. You know what I think it is? God damn it. I think that guy, whether he meant to or not, took as many tears from me growing up as he could. I think I cried when I was 6, when I was 9, when I was 12, when I was 14, when I was 30. When I think all the moments of disappointment and regret, I think he took all the tears I had at that point. So I'm still trying to figure things out about his life, his longevity, if you will.
I think that's very important.
But as far as the tears, no, man, I think he took them all. And maybe there'll be some other day. Because it's weird, because I've been thinking about him a lot before we agreed to do this podcast. I've been thinking about him a lot more. And maybe it's because I saw that freaking video. And maybe it's because I think, can I go back? Because the one thing I said I would never be growing up, I won't be like my old man.
Yeah. Well, I feel.
And what did my old man do? He went back to the island. Maybe on some level he knew something.
I'm not trying to encourage you, but I will invite you out to my old man's grave. It's real close.
I would like that.
We won't publicize it. We won't post it. We won't do anything.
I don't want to do any of that.
But I gotta tell you is that when I go out there, I usually light a cigar, and I bring a bottle just to have a drink or two. And it reminds me of the day that my dad passed away. When I asked these questions, you didn't know those things, and we're going off the topic here a little bit.
No, we're not really, because it's about longevity.
So when my mom called me at I think it was 5-something a.m., she doesn't call me at that time. That's why I asked that question.
Okay,
I knew something was wrong.
I didn't get a 5 a.m. call.
I didn't know. I thought something was wrong. I thought my initial thought was like my dad was like, he had an issue, whatever. 20 minutes later, I was over at the house, and unfortunately, that was not the case. And I didn't get to say goodbye. And so I
didn't get to say goodbye.
What did I do? And a lot of people say different things, but so the police were there and all that stuff. And
police were there?
Well, because there's a dead body. My mom had already called the police.
How did your father die?
Got up in the morning. She woke up in the morning. He had already gotten up in the middle of the night, so he was on the floor of the family room.
All right.
I took a cheers to him with one of these glasses.
This one? This actual kind of glass?
Absolutely. Green. 70s style, man.
That's a dad's glass.
It's an artist.
That's a dad glass.
With Jameson. And so that's what I normally do on important holidays.
I like Jamesons. I like you.
But I think that before anyone tunes out and thinks that we're just getting drunk on this podcast,
no,
there might be a follow-up.
I'm way more freaking sober than when I started.
Like to be.
Yeah, actually.
But right up the road, Blenheim Cemetery I've had friends come up there that have not lost their parents or lost anyone important in their life. And what's really impactful about that is that the stuff you're talking about, when you deal with it, no matter what the situation is, if you're hurt, you're angry, or you just think that you just missed on what they thought longevity was about.
Mm-hmm.
And you look at it, like my dad passed away at 72.
Young.
I'm 41. I'm like, all right, so if I start the clock now, luckily I still have my mom just fucking kicking ass.
Yeah, mine too.
Yeah, my mom's fucking 74, like 75, like she's just
told
like
you earlier in the podcast,
rolling with it. I'm like
86 tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm like, Mom, you need anything? She's like,
yeah, I need you to quit asking me if I'm
fine.
all right.
I'm fine. And I say, I love you. She's like, oh, yeah, I love you too. Not because she doesn't love me, but she doesn't think the way I think.
No, I get it. Well, dude, I don't have all the answers, and I don't think I'm ever going to have all the answers.
Tune in tomorrow, Sunday 95, and we're going to talk about this.
Like, we're not going to talk about tomorrow. I'm not going to have the answer, but I would.
4 a.m.
I would sincerely.
BS podcast be on Sunday 95.
Do you have a certain day that you go? Is it a Sunday? Is it a Saturday? Is it a random day?
I'll do any day with you guys, but we've.
As a rule, do you know?
So I do. I normally do Christmas. I do. His birthday is December 5th. Before that, and then Father's Day.
So you don't go weekly. You don't go monthly.
I don't go weekly.
You just go.
No.
So maybe we pop it when maybe we surprise him and just pop up on a random day in July.
I'm down.
Call me.
When are you off? Sundays?
I'm off Saturdays and Sundays mostly, unless there's something going on and I'm busy doing something. Maybe some podcast in a garage for 3 hours.
All right, let's go. All right, who's driving?
Not tonight.
Whose car are we taking?
No, absolutely.
Let me just tell you that the single barrel was great. We loved it, and this cigar was awesome. I know we didn't get to any of that. I apologize.
Nate didn't do closing remarks, but I appreciate you, Nate.
I appreciate
you have something to say?
Well, I mean, listen to you guys talk. For me, longevity is. Well, now I got smoke in my eyes.
Yeah,
longevity is 2 parts. One, when you're talking about longevity for your personal self, starts early. You don't wait till it's too late to start doing the things that'll create longevity.
Correct.
But also, in hearing both of you talk, longevity is also how you are remembered when you're gone.
Yeah. It's big.
I think about that. It's funny because the opinions of the people on the island when my father died are probably glowing, and the opinions of some others, myself, maybe not so much. But
they're lasting.
They're lasting.
So my father's funeral, right? So the wake in Westerville was scheduled for 2 hours, and it went way beyond that because he was a big part of like the rec baseball, like it's just a community guy, right? So at some point there was the receiving line of my mom, my aunt, brother, 2 years older, sister-in-law, a couple other people, and I finally was like, I'm not doing this. So I actually just backed away in this funeral home. A couple of my friends were like, what do you need? And I was like, I don't need anything. I'm good. I just want to make sure everyone's just saying their goodbyes. And like, boy, what would you like? And I was like, well, I'd like to take a sip of whiskey right now. This is in the funeral home, in Westerville, Ohio, right?
Yeah, before it
was dry for so long.
When they were still dry, I was gonna say whiskey in Westerville.
Yeah. So, so what happened was I had my friends actually bring a bottle of Jameson, and we just sipped on it, and we had glasses in our hands, and I saw my friends come in, and they saw me, and they're like, go over here, say get over here. We had those moments. It's very interesting about how you realize or rationalize that stuff.
And that's what I think about now as I get older. I think about the moments. I think about the moments I have left and how many moments I want to have left. I think sometimes if I stay here, those moments might be limited. And sometimes I think if I go there, Do I think that if I go there, I'm automatically live to be 100? No.
Based on your text, yeah.
No, I mean, yeah, I mean that's
the.
But maybe
utopia.
that's the way. But maybe that's the way I need to think in my heart and in my head.
Can we smoke cigars over there?
Yeah, you can smoke cigars over there.
They smoke cigarettes.
They smoke
all
cigarettes.
the wine and cigars, I'm in, man.
Yeah, all the wine and cigars you want, and music and food and
dancing,
dancing and festivals and whatnot, and camaraderie and everything. It's just like there was a story. I had this moment like 5 years ago when I read a story in the New York Times about a guy who was diagnosed with terminal cancer, and he decided he didn't want to spend the last 6 months of his life here in New York City, so he moved back to Ikaria to be with his parents who were still living, to spend his last 6 months there. And he adapted to the lifestyle there in a few short months and started to live the life, garden, eat the food, live the lifestyle. 6 months came and went. He was still alive. A year came and went. He was still alive. 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 4 year. He's cancer free when he was diagnosed as terminal because of this whole lifestyle change. He goes back to New York City.
No.
He goes back to New York for a visit. For a visit. Just for a visit.
I don't know how the story turns out.
Just for a visit. And he goes to see his doctor who diagnosed him with terminal cancer. But he can't see his doctor because his doctor is dead. No, true story. True story. And he goes back to the island and continues to live a fruitful life. I don't know if he's passed away since that article was 4, 5, 6 years ago.
Let's get him on the show.
But we're talking about a guy in his 60s who went back to live with his parents who were in their 80s. So his parents in their 80s and him in his 60s with cancer, and they continue to live this fruitful long life on Ikaria, Ikaria, Ikaria or Icaria.
Look up the information.
Look up the information. Just Google it, and you'll see a bunch load of stuff, or maybe Sardinia for you, or Okinawa, or one of the 7 other blue zones that might be longevity related to you. But
biggest thing is take care of the people that are important to you.
Yeah, my
and
daughter,
yourself.
the people I love, friends.
Cheers, everyone.
Cheers, everyone. Hey, guys, thank you for another great night,
bro.
A long night, but thank you so much. Did you like the single barrel?